If you're a real estate investor, house flipper, or wholesaler, you already know the deal isn't won when the lead comes in. It's won on the phone. It's won in how you handle the seller, how you handle the objection, and how you lock the contract before they get cold feet. This is the full course on exactly how to do all of that. Every module, start to finish, free, nothing held back. I'm Steve Tang. I've spent the past 10 years training hundreds of the top real estate sales teams in the country, and this is a sales system we teach that allowed us to close over $100 million in sales. By the end of this, you'll know how to set the rules of the call, pull the truth out of the seller, extract the pain, lock the price, confirm terms, and kill seller's remorse before it ever costs you a deal. I've even dropped one of my own live seller calls in here so you can watch the whole thing happen in real time. One thing before we start, if you're trying to scale your business without adding headcount, using AI sales agents to get 10 to 50 new signed contracts guaranteed, there's a separate free training in the description. It's the exact system the top wholesalers are running right now. Now let's get into it.
The ideal seller system. We like to call this the end of delays, smoke screens, objections, and games. What ends up happening oftentimes is when we go to an appointment, there's a game that's being played and you may not recognize it. You got the seller who is telling you, that they're working with you or, they're shopping you, whatever. They'll tell you whatever they need to tell you, but ultimately at the end of the day, we know they're not being as honest as they can be. And if you're not careful, you're gonna fall victim to this. The analogy I like to use is actually a scene from Eurotrip, where Scotty's graduating high school, his parents are there, recording everything, and his grandparents are there too. It's a great day for celebration. And Fiona, his girlfriend, walks up and says, "Hey, we need to break up." And he looks at her, dumbfounded. And he says, "I don't understand, what's going on?" And she says, "I'm tired of all the lying and the cheating." And he says to her, "I'm not doing any of those things." And she says, "I know." What's happening here is there's a game that's being played, and if you're not fully prepared for it, you will fall victim to the game. So we're going to teach you the rules of the game and how you can win at the same exact game. Have you ever had a homeowner ask you for a price, and when you shared the price with them, they became offended? Or are you tired of hearing, "I need to think about it"? Or possibly, have you had a homeowner tell you they needed to think about it, and instead of them thinking about it, they were shopping your offer? Or even worse, have you ever had a property that you went to, met with a homeowner, and you saw that photo and that address on another wholesaler's list? Or ultimately, the worst, at least for me, is when you see a DocuSign and it says, "So-and-so has opened your envelope," and that's the last time you ever talk to the homeowner. If that's the case, the bad news is it's your fault. Because did you, at any time, tell them they were not allowed to think about it? They were not allowed to shop your offer. And that when they met with you, they're working with you right then and there. Now there's a warning here for you. When you follow our proven process, you're going to get a lot more no's. However, you're also going to get a lot more yeses because you're going to get a lot fewer stalls and objections like "I need to think about it" or "I need to sleep on it." Now, if you want to be able to consistently achieve a desired outcome, or if you want to be able to troubleshoot where the appointment might have gone south, or ultimately if you might be a great closer yourself but have a hard time getting your team to replicate you, then I've got great news. This is the system for you. When you meet with a homeowner, what is their process today? They're gonna lie to you, they're gonna steal from you, and they're gonna mislead you, and they're gonna hide from you. Now this might come across as a little harsh, but the reality is the sales defense system we have today has been around forever because the sales process has been around forever. And so we're all programmed to defend ourselves against salespeople the same exact way. So let me share with you how this looks. You're gonna hear things like, "I'm in no hurry." "I don't need to sell." "I'm in no rush." "This house is in great condition. I just remodeled it," right? Have you heard these things before? Now, we're saying homeowners will lie to you, but I want you to put yourself in a position of just a regular shopper. The last time you went to Best Buy, Apple, or whatever, and you walked in and a salesperson with a bright smile asked you, "Can I help you?" What did you say? Probably the same two words everyone else says, "Just looking." Now, you could be like my daughter. When she was 2, we went to H&M in Scottsdale, and the salesperson asked us, "Can I help you?" And my daughter responded with, "Go away." Why? Because she didn't know yet that you're allowed to lie to salespeople. And so what are the things that a homeowner will steal from you? They're gonna steal your time, and they're gonna steal your knowledge. What are some examples of that? When a homeowner reaches out to you, you're gonna have that conversation, 10 to 15 minutes on the phone to book the appointment. You're gonna do your research to figure out what you're willing to offer them. You're going to drive to their house, run an appointment anywhere from 15 minutes to 2 hours, 2.5 hours if it's a really long appointment. And on the drive back, if you didn't get the contract, it always seems to take a little bit longer to get back. They've just taken 3, 4, 5 hours of your time. How does a homeowner feel? Do they feel the slightest bit guilty about it? No. Have you ever had a homeowner ask you, hey, I'd like to reimburse you for your time? Probably not. So they'll steal your time and they won't feel bad about it at all. How about your knowledge? They're going to find out from you what their house is worth, how much it's going to cost to make repairs, what other homes are selling for, and they're not going to reimburse you for that either. And so they'll steal your time, they'll steal your knowledge, and again, they won't feel the slightest bit bad about it. Now, how about us? We're not that much better. Think about the last time you went to a store to buy something, and before you pulled the trigger, you just checked on your phone one more time, say, well, I wonder how much this is, let me make sure the reviews are good. And you might have bought something at the store on your phone. And did you feel the slightest bit guilty about it, right? They've got their lease, they got their wages, they got their insurance, everything, and we'll steal their time and their resources, and we don't feel the slightest bit bad about it. And the next thing they'll do is they'll mislead you. They'll tell you, I like your offer, you seem really nice, or I need to sleep on it, think about it, pray on it, or I need to talk to my husband, my wife, my son, my daughter, or maybe I need to run this by my attorney, my accountant, my realtor. They will tell you whatever they feel like they need to tell you so that you will go away. Are you familiar with the expression, I know just enough to be dangerous? Well, that's exactly what you're doing when you're educating a homeowner. When they ask you to come over, they actually had a problem that you could solve. You educating them does not solve their problems. So what you're doing is you're giving them just enough information to be dangerous. We call this leaving them as sophomores. And what I mean by that is the root words for sophomore is sophos and moros, which is sophisticated moron. We're leaving the homeowners just enough information to be dangerous. We're not actually solving their problems. Now, when we talk about hiding, what are we talking about here? We have this, what we call in the office, a prospect protection program. This is where they'll disappear off the face of the earth, they'll ghost you, and you can't get a hold of them. And what's always funny to me is you actually call them from a different phone number, and they'll get upset with you for doing that. Now, we actually had one person who called the same homeowner 7 times from 7 different phone numbers, because if you call them from the same number, they won't answer it. So this guy genuinely had 7 different conversations with the homeowner from 7 different phone numbers. And the system today is the homeowner is going to lie to you, steal from you, mislead you, and hide from you. Well, what's our sales process? Before you sign up for this sales training program, we will qualify them, talk at them, and go for the close. What does that sound like? In qualifying, you might ask questions like, well, how much do you want for your house? How soon did you want to move? Tell me about the condition of the home. Are you the homeowner? Each one of these questions are simple yes or no questions that are very easily lied to. And you can get very short answers, so these don't help you at all. And the next thing we do is we're going to talk at them. And what I mean by that is we're going to educate them. We're going to say your house is worth X because of A, B, and C. We're going to tell them what the market's doing. We're going to share with them what investors are paying and why they need to work with us because of how awesome we are, right? We're going to talk about all the features and benefits and how cool we are. We're going to share with them how the process works. And ultimately, we do this because it's 2 things. We love hearing ourselves talk, and we want to show how great we are. But that doesn't actually help the homeowner at all. And the last step for us is going for the close. And what I know is that most of us are either closing too hard or too soft. There's 100 different ways to close. So we got the alternative or assumptive close. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, it's the middle of the month. Would you like to close at the end of this month or maybe next month? We got the sit and stare, right? If you bought a car, you recognize this. The car dealer will put everything in writing, slide it around, put the pen down, and just stare at you. Or we got the, well, what's it gonna take? What will we need to offer for you to sign today? And that question isn't terribly harsh, but you can see how it kind of sounds like a car sales guy. And lastly, the worst question, which is what I did for most of my career. It really is a miracle that I sit here before you to teach you about sales, because my closing question for the first 9 years of my career is, well, what do you think? And what's the natural answer to what do you think? I need to think about it. So I was shooting myself in the foot for all these years. I have no idea how many millions of dollars I left on the table, but I probably would be retired by now if I wasn't asking, well, what do you think? And the process today is we're going to qualify them and they're going to lie to us. We're going to talk at them and they're going to steal all that information from us. And when we go for the close, they're going to mislead and hide from us. How's that process going to work out for us? What would Billy May say here? There's got to be a better way. And the good news is there is. And the better way is that we close. In the first 5 to 15 minutes, it's going to be a yes or it's going to be a no, and you're not allowed to think about it. And then we disqualify throughout the rest of the appointment. And if we can make it to the very end, then we just confirm everything we talked about. And that is the natural close to a great appointment. Now, a little bit of caution here. The reason why we do it this way is that if you're trying to close at the very end, you're putting way too much pressure on you and the homeowner. You see, as the appointment progresses, this whole time, the homeowner's thinking, when's he going to go for the close? What's he going to say? How is he going to try to trick me? And if you wait to the very end, there's so much pressure and you get all these objections. So what we do is we close in the first couple of minutes, and then we're going to deal with all the objections throughout the appointment. And at the very end, there is no pressure because we made it to the very end. We dealt with all the objections, and signatures is just a natural ending to the appointment. When you're over there trying to buy someone's house, your job as a home buyer is to be like a professional sketch artist. I want you to be able to repeat back to them, articulate what it is that's going on exactly in their world. If you can describe back to them what it is they told you and really understand what's going on inside their head, do you believe that you developed enough rapport? And on top of that, I want you to be able to articulate what the ideal outcome is for them. If you can describe their pain and the ideal outcome, do you believe at the very end of the day, they'll want to work with you? And so your job as a home buyer is to be a sketch artist. And so our proven process is you're going to establish the rules. In the first 5 to 15 minutes of the appointment, you're going to extract the pain from them, having them relive, re-experience all the pain they're going through right now. And then after that point, pull the price, pull the decision makers, and the time frame from them. And after you've done all of that, you can confirm everything they talked about, put it all in writing, and then before you leave, prevent remorse. And that is our Disruptors selling system. Before we wrap up this section, I just really want to emphasize why we're not allowing them to think about it. Because what happens when you allow a prospect to think about it, emotions are high, right? I want you to think about when you went to a bonfire or when you went camping. When you were near the fire, emotions were very high, there was a lot of warmth. And as you left the campfire, you became a little cooler. What happens is when you're dealing with a homeowner, when the emotions are high, that's the time to get an agreement from them. That's the time to get the contract signed. If you wait just a day later, all the emotions have dissipated and is now back to an entirely intellectual conversation, and there's no reason for them to sign with you when things are all entirely intellectual again. Additionally, as we go through this course, we're going to talk about how all decisions are made emotionally and justified logically. When you hear the words, I need to think about it, what that's telling you is that they have not been able to justify why they have not been able to agree to you at your price. If they can't justify it, that just means they're not sold. So when you hear, I need to think about it, just hear, I'm not sold, and there's something that you're missing, and you're leaving just means you're not going to get a contract later on. And finally, is it possible, just possible, that things change after you leave? Is it possible that they might get a second opinion from a realtor, a second opinion from their friends, their family? Another thing happens too. We have this thing called a reticular activator system. So I want you to think about the car you drive currently, right now. The week before you bought that car and the week after you bought that car. Did you see that car everywhere? So that's just the brain at work looking for something that it recognizes. So what happens is when they've met with you and you don't get a signed contract, they will literally see every postcard, every billboard, every marketing material about buying their house for cash. And you, if you leave right now, are subjecting them to all this other advertising and additional competition that there's no reason for you to subject yourself and the homeowner to. And the best way to improve in all of this is to really just rinse and repeat and practice all the time. I highly recommend, as you go through this material, practice this with your colleagues, with your friends, your family. I use this all the time with my kids. I can't really emphasize this enough. Additionally, practice this on low-stakes situations. Practice when you're calling customer service, when you're at a hotel, or you talk to a homeowner who says, my house is worth according to Zillow, 300,000, and I won't take $1 less, go on those appointments. Yeah, they're not great leads, but now you can get your reps in. And finally, after each appointment, I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions. What went well at that appointment? What did not go well at that appointment? How was I responsible for that outcome? And if you can do this consistently, practice in low-stakes situations, practice with friends and family, and do a diagnostic after every single appointment, I promise you, you will close more deals. In this section, we're going to talk about establishing rules. I like to think of this as the thinking delay crusher. And we're going to talk about setting proper expectations at the appointment. I want you to think back about every single time you've been upset in a situation, whether it was service, a vendor, a relationship, whatever. Is it possible that when you're upset is because what you expected and what you got were 2 totally different things? And when we think about unmet expectations breeds frustration. At the beginning of every appointment, we want to go over what the homeowner's agenda is, and then what our agenda is, and then ultimately a clear outcome. What a yes means, what a no means. And so I want you to think about when you go over to a homeowner's house and you figure out what it is they're trying to do, what is their agenda typically? How about you walk through my house, take some photos, give me a number, and if I like your number, I'll give you a call back. Is that the typical homeowner's agenda? What about our agenda? Is it not our intention every single time when we meet a homeowner to get a signed contract? How far apart are we in expectations right now? Now, my next question for you is, how many houses does a homeowner sell per month? Not a lot. How many houses are we trying to buy a month? Quite a bit. Who's the professional here? So what we want to do is tell them what a normal appointment is, what the typical homeowner's expectations are. And then the same thing, we'll tell them what our expectations are, which isn't any different. And then again, a clear outcome. If it's a yes, we put everything in writing. If it's a no, we part ways, no big deal. And the reason why I say this is that we've gone through and trained a lot of people, and they'll say what a yes means, and in their minds, a yes is we'll move forward, and moving forward is totally ambiguous. For a homeowner, move forward can still mean I still get to meet those other home buyers. So for us, a clear outcome. Yes, we're putting everything in writing. No, we part ways. And in our framework, the first thing we do is we thank them for their time. We want to remind them they invited us into their home. We didn't just show up randomly. There was an actual need for us. After that, we're going to ask them, can I share with you how these meetings normally go? We want to soften it, because if we go straight into setting the rules, they're going to be kind of like, what is going on here? So we want to just ask them, can I share with you how these meetings normally go? That's our soft approach before we go into closing the appointment in the first 5 to 15 minutes. We're going to tell them that these meetings go about an hour, hour and a half. Is that still a good amount of time? And the reason why we do that is actually for 2 reasons. For some of these homeowners, they're trying to get you out in 15 minutes, and if they only set aside 15 minutes for you, you're not buying a house. It's time to leave. Additionally, there's a lot of gravity. When you're selling your home to a cash buyer, it's a very serious situation. We want to remind them the gravity of the situation here. And then we'll tell them, here are the 3 questions people normally want to ask us. How does this process work? How much money am I going to get from this sale? How soon will I get that money? Pause. Am I missing anything? And the reason why we do this is because those are the 3 most common questions we get, but we pause because we want to see if there's any other questions they got. And then we'll ask them again, am I missing anything? And if they tell you anything here at all, write that down, because it's obviously critical to them. And then we'll share with them, obviously, for me to figure out if this is a house that I'm going to buy, I'm going to ask you some questions. Some of these questions might come across as personal. And we're doing this for 2 reasons. First, we want to position ourselves that we might not actually buy your house. Now, these homeowners have been getting calls, voicemails, text messages, marketing pieces about people wanting to buy their house. They think everyone wants to buy their house. And we're telling them here, for the very first time, we might not buy your house. We're positioning ourselves here. After that, we're asking for permission to ask personal questions. Why? Have you ever asked a homeowner, how much do you owe? Why are you behind your mortgage? What's your interest rate? Who else knows about this? And they look at you kind of funny and they say, well, that's kind of a personal question. Why do you need to know that? If you ask permission for personal questions early on, they will honor that permission later on in the appointment. I'll give you an example here. My partner, Max, he actually was talking to a homeowner He set the proper rules. In the middle of the appointment, I overheard her say, "You're asking a lot of questions." And she was clearly frustrated. And Max says to her, "Oh, I apologize. In the very beginning, I thought I was going to ask you if I can ask you some questions, and you said I was okay." And she said, "Oh, that's right, you did. Go ahead, keep asking your questions." And she was okay with it. So if you get permission in the very beginning, they will be okay with it throughout the appointment. And they will share at the end, naturally, one of two things will happen. Either we buy your house or we don't. Either way is okay. If the price we offer doesn't work for you, or you're not quite convinced I'm your guy, would you feel comfortable telling me no? What have we done here? We've empowered them to say no. And so when we push away throughout the rest of the appointment, by empowering them to say no, they feel comfortable telling us no. So that it's easier to get a clear outcome. Then we'll say, "And if I'm not going to be buying your house, will you be okay if I tell you that?" Again, for emphasis, we're just positioning ourselves to say that we might not buy your house. And if it does make sense for us to work together, what that means is we'll take everything we talked about and put it in writing. Is that fair? And what we've done here is that we're telling them if it's a yes, we're signing everything right now, today. Then after that, we'll pause. Can you share with me what you heard? And we want them to repeat back to us everything that we've just agreed upon. And the reason why this is important is you might get a counterfeit yes. You might get someone's like, "Yeah, I'm okay with that." And what you want to do is you want them to be committed to establishing the rules. And after that, we tell them they're not allowed to think about it. The way it sounds is, "Can I share with you my biggest fear? You seem really nice. Some of the homeowners we talked to in the past, they were afraid to hurt our feelings. And instead of telling us no, they told us they needed to think about it. Can you promise me that you won't do that? I promise you, you cannot hurt my feelings. And if I hear anything besides a yes or a no, I'm just going to take that as a no. Is that fair?" And what have we done here? They're not allowed to think about it. So later on, if they tell us they need to think about it, we can refer back to, "Hey, remember at the very beginning, you said you weren't going to tell us you need to think about it? You can just tell me no," right? And that's our framework for establishing the rules. Let me share with you how we say it so you can hear the tonality behind all of this. "Thank you for inviting me into your home. Can I share with you how these appointments normally go? These meetings generally go about an hour, hour and a half. Is that still a good amount of time for you? Typically, homeowners that we meet with want to know, how does this process work? How much money will I get from this? When will I get my money? Am I missing anything?" Obviously, for me to figure out if this is one of the houses that we're going to buy, I'm going to have to ask you some questions. Some may even be personal. Will that be okay? Naturally, at the end of our time together, one of two things will happen. Either we work together or we won't. Either way is okay. If the price we offer you doesn't work for you, or if you don't believe that we're a good fit, would you feel comfortable telling me no? Likewise, if this isn't one of the houses that we're going to buy, will you be okay if I tell you that? And if it does make sense for us to work together, then we'll go ahead and put everything we talked about in writing. Is that fair? Can I share with you my biggest fear? You seem really nice. Some of the homeowners we've talked to in the past were really afraid to hurt our feelings and felt better telling us that they needed to think about it. Can you promise me that you won't do that? I promise you can't hurt my feelings. And if you say anything besides a yes or a no, I'm just going to take that as a no. Is that fair? And that's it. That's how we share our biggest fear and get them to stop telling us they need to think about it. We do modify how we establish the rules based off of DISC profiles. If you're not familiar with DISC, D, I, S, and C, wait for it. It'll be at the very end of our course. Now for a D, a high driver, we don't ask for an hour, hour and a half. If you do ask for an hour and a half, you're going to lose rapport in the very beginning. So we'll just tell them, hey, it's going to be 30, 45 minutes. Additionally, if you're dealing with an I, someone that loves people and loves chatting, we're just going to add some more small talk. It's just part of the process. If you're dealing with an S, someone that says, I don't want to make a decision in one sitting, what we want to do is we want to ask them, could you ask me enough questions so that you would feel comfortable knowing you're working with the right person? And we take that challenge and we put it back in their court, right? Don't make your problem my problem. If you're dealing with an analytical, a C profile, we actually will allow them to think about it if they can convince us that they truly are an analytical person. So we'll just ask them, how long do you think you're going to need? 24 hours? 48 hours? Perfect. And when I call you back at that time, you will have figured out whether it's a yes or a no. Perfect. So when I call you back and it's a no, what happens next? When I call you back and it's a yes, what happens next? Perfect. And so what we're doing is we're just taking the future and bringing it to the present, allowing them to make the decision. Yeah, they can wait, but when we call them back later on, we're going to continue right where we left off. Another element that's crucial to our sales process is positioning and scarcity. One rule we have is you got to go for no. Sometimes you got to end the meeting to start the meeting. What happens is when you first meet the homeowner, their guard is really high. And in order to get their guard down, you want to empower them to say no. You want to get to a point where you ask them, is the meeting over? And once the meeting's over, you ask them, shall I leave? And they say, yeah, it's over. You should go. And you say, perfect. Now that it's over, what are you going to do? And now they'll start talking. And at this point, their guard is completely down and you can restart the sales process and nobody realizes what happened. As for scarcity, what you want to do, if someone tells you I need to think about it, you say, well, you can think about it, but here's my problem. If you call me back in a couple of days, I only have enough money to buy 2 more houses between now and the end of the week. You call me back in a couple of days, I might be out of money. So it's not that you can't think about it, it's just when you call me back, I might be out of money. And the last part for positioning is we came over to buy a house today. So we are professional home buyers, right? So you have a homeowner that says, well, what's my house worth? They're trying to figure out what it's worth and so on. You just stop them right there. It sounds like you're trying to find out what your house is worth. I came here to buy a home. Sounds like even if I made an offer, you wouldn't be prepared to sign it. Let's do this. I've got a couple of appraiser buddies. I can have them reach out to you. Or I got some realtor buddies that love doing a market analysis. How about I have them give you a call? Or the homeowner might ask you, what's it going to cost to replace the windows, the roof, carpet and paint? And you got to stop them right there. It sounds like you're trying to get some bids. I got some contractor buddies. I can have them give you a call, right? But I came here to buy a house today, and it sounds again like you're not ready to sell. Or you have some other people say, well, why don't you make me an offer, right? They're just collecting offers. And we tell them the same thing here. I'm not in the offer making business. I'm in the house buying business. Sounds like you're not ready to sell. Maybe I should leave. And that's how we position ourselves for maximum leverage.
Real quick, then we'll get right back to it. We built objection-proof AI to do 3 things. 1, call every new lead back in seconds, 24/7, handle the objections, and book the appointment. 2, grade and coach every call your team makes so that your close rates keep climbing. And 3, help you scale your wholesale operation without adding headcount so that you never miss a lead or lose a deal to slow follow-up again. If you want that for your business, go to the link in the description and book a call with our team. We guarantee you'll get at least 10 to 50 signed contracts in the next 90 days. Now back to it.
When you're talking with the homeowner, extracting truth, meaning, intent is one of the hardest things to do, and we want to spend 3 modules going over this. Growing up, Mom used to say, it's not what you said, but how you said it. And unfortunately, Mom was wrong. It's not just what you say or how you said it, it's how that message was received through their eyes, through their ears, and how it landed in their heart and mind. So it is your responsibility for you to deliver that message in a way that it can communicate effectively with the homeowner. Additionally, you are 100% responsible for extracting what it is they're trying to tell you. No matter what they tell you, you need to fully understand the meaning and intent behind everything that they say. Let's pretend you and I were hanging out, and I share with you, hey, I got us this gig. We're digging a pool across the street at that hotel. And immediately, I handed you a spoon. What are you thinking? Steve's got to be crazy. There's no way we can dig a pool with a spoon. Well, that's kind of the hardware we've got from our caveman ancestors. When we're trying to communicate, research shows that our brain operates at 20 million bits per second, but our ability to communicate is 7 bits per second. 20 million versus 7. And so when we're trying to communicate with somebody, we've got to be very intentional in how we are extracting what it is they're trying to tell us. There's a rule. I learned it a long time ago when I first got into sales. To understand what Johnny buys, see the world through Johnny's eyes. And what that means is you need to see what they see and feel what they feel if you really want to connect with them. A lesson I learned a long time ago was you're a genius in your world, but an idiot in theirs. You understand title commitments, due diligence, escrow, and so on, but you haven't the slightest clue what's going on in their head. You can have 7 different people going through foreclosure, and they'll each process it completely differently. We have several rules when it comes to communicating. The first one is we assume a lot. That sounds kind of weird. What we do is we assume a lot, but we assume out loud. Let me share with you an example. We had a home investor in town, and they met with the homeowner, and the homeowner asked them, well, when are we closing? And this guy's thinking, well, we're a cash buyer. He says, I can get this done in 7 days. Homeowner says, okay, well, how about you give me a call back tomorrow and I'll let you know what we decide to do. Calls him back the next day and he says, well, we went with the other guy. And the guy says, why'd you go with the other guy? They were $5,000 lower. And the homeowner says, well, they allowed us a 60-day close. To which the investor blurts out, well, you didn't tell me you want a 60-day close. Whose fault is that, right? When they asked, how soon are we closing? He should have said, well, I can close as fast as 7 days, but I got a feeling you're looking to, the time frame is important to you. When were you hoping to close? And when the homeowner says 60 days, okay, if we can do that, then what would happen next? And he probably would have gotten the contract. Another rule we follow is the 70-30 rule, where whoever's doing most of the talking is going to be doing the buying. So there's a scene from Boiler Room where Ben Affleck says, in every call, either they're buying from you or you're buying from them that they don't need you. And so for us, if the seller's doing most of the talking, we're probably buying their house. If we're doing most of the talking, we're probably buying from them that they don't need us. So the old adage, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, that's true here as well. Let me share another hypothetical with you. Let's pretend I got some friends in town and I call my wife and say, hey, we're going to the casino with the boys. Are you good with that? How's that conversation going to work? Probably not in my favor. So what does a smart married man say? Hey, honey, do you ever get anything going on? To which she might tell you, well, we have dinner with my parents, so you don't ask about going to the casino. Or she might say, hey, dummy, you forgot we're going over to your parents' house. Again, we're not asking about the casino. Or she might tell us, hey, you forgot it's your turn to watch the kids so I can go out. What happens though, either way, I'm not asking about going to the casino, right? But if she says, oh, we got nothing going on, then we might say, meekly, hey, well, you okay if I go to the casino with the guys? I make this joke, but I want you to think about, in our business, homeowner asks you, how long have you been in the business? You might answer that question, but why would you answer that question? What were they hoping to find out? When they asked us, how long have you been in the business? I would answer, how long have you been in the business? That's an interesting question. What brings it up right now? They might say, well, I want to make sure that whoever's buying my house has the ability to perform. You're going to say, okay, that makes sense. You want someone that can perform. What would you need to see to feel comfortable knowing that we're the people that can perform? And they might share with you, well, if you can show me a bank statement with the money in your bank account, or a list of homes that you purchased, or show me some testimonials from other people that you bought their houses. Perfect. If I can show you that, then you feel comfortable. And they say yes. How different are those questions versus how long have you been in the business? Let me give you another example. If they asked me how long I've been in the business and I answered, I'm so glad you asked me that question. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad in 2006. I got my real estate license in 2007. I did short sales, foreclosures. I opened my brokerage in 2013. And along the way, I got all these agents. Does the homeowner care the slightest bit about any of this? No, they're going to gloss over, right? So you got to remember, when they're asking how long you've been in the business, it's not the question they're trying to ask. So our goal is to extract what it is that they mean by every question that they ask. Additionally, it's really important that you soften this, right? So what I learned a long time ago was you answer every question with a question. But if you don't soften it, it can sound a little combative. How long have you been in business? Why are you asking me that question? Comes across kind of harsh. So you want to soften it. So how long have you been in the business? Well, that's an interesting question. How come that comes up now? Or how long have you been in the business? I get that question all the time and you're asking me right now because, or how long have you been in business? I have never heard that question before. I'm curious. That question comes up right now because, or how long have you been in business? How long have I been in business? And you're asking me that because, and you can see we softened it before we reversed it. Now, the only thing that we don't say for softening is good question. And there's nothing inherently wrong with good question, but the problem is a lot of sales trainers teach to answer questions with good question, and it kind of sounds like a salesperson. We want to remove anything that makes us sound like a salesperson. Another critical technique in our sales process is the sad puppy. I want you to think about right now, if this morning when you woke up, you opened your front door and on the welcome mat was this sad puppy that was lost with his big sad puppy eyes, would you pick it up? If you're like most of the people that have attended our workshops, the answer is probably not, which is kind of crazy to me. But the general public, for the most part, will pick up that puppy. You see, most people want to help other people. And so we want to use that in our sales process. Allow them to rescue you. Now, when I started as a server, on my very first day, I was so bad. How did I know? Because I had multiple people ask me, is this your first day? But here's the thing, I got some incredible tips that day. Why? Because they were thinking This poor kid, if we don't help him, nobody else will. And so I got some great tips that day. Now let's talk about real estate. When I first started real estate in 2007 as a realtor, when someone asked me a question, I didn't know the answer. So I wrote down the question and I called my broker and I would call the clients back and say, this is what my broker said. Did those clients feel listened to? Then, as I got better, I stopped writing the questions down and I started answering the questions. And then it got to a point where I can answer the question before they even finished asking it. Now, I didn't do that because I wasn't rude, but it even got to a point where I knew the question was coming before they even asked it. Did I at this point appear to be a slick professional? So what changed? When did I start getting success again? Well, I started writing down their questions. I would start mirroring, acknowledging the questions, and really try to fully understand what it is they're trying to ask me. I'll share with you another example. I have a brokerage. We have about 100 agents and about 1% market share. One thing about having a brokerage is that we do get judgments here and there, and with those judgments come wage garnishment notices. Now, the very first time I got a wage garnishment notice, I was kind of freaked out. Talked to my attorney, he says, oh, you can disregard those. And then, over time we get more. And I did get a call one time from an attorney who was freaking out and asked me, is this Steve Tang? I said, yes. And she says, we issued you a wage garnishment notice and you have not responded. To which I replied, oh, I apologize. My attorney says that I don't have to reply to these. So, if you could just send me an email, let me know what we got wrong. I'll be happy to address it. And she responds, I'm not your attorney. I don't work for you. To which I responded, well, I'm just trying to make this right. I mean, if you could just tell me what we did wrong. And she says again, you're not paying me. You're paying the other guy. Have him figure this out. To which I replied, ma'am, I'm so sorry. I didn't get a chance to go to law school. I'm just a real estate agent. To which she responds, fine, what's your email address? And she gave it to me. So by going sad puppy, I was able to allow her, even though she didn't want to rescue me and help us get this issue resolved. The next rule is to never answer an unasked question. These are smoke screens. So you're gonna hear things like, well, we're also talking to a realtor. Now, a younger version of me might have responded with, well, why would you want to go with a realtor? It's going to take time to sell. You got to go through inspections and financing and blah, blah, blah. But they didn't say they're going to use a realtor. They're just sharing with you that they're talking to a realtor. And so if they say, we're talking to a realtor, and you tell me that because, they might just tell you, well, my sister-in-law is a realtor and I just have to talk to her or my wife won't let me sleep at night, right? They're not telling you they don't want to use you. But what happens is sometimes you want to crush the competition when there's no competition to be crushed. Or you might hear, we already have an offer. Old version of me might have said, I already have an offer. Well, who's it from? I can tell you if they're any good or not. Let me review the contract for you. They didn't tell you that they're going to go with the other guy. So we already have an offer. Great, you already got this resolved. I'm so relieved for you. They'll say, well, no, I haven't signed anything yet, right? Or you might hear things like, your offer is too low. And old version of me, that's an instant 5K increase. I will increase my offer. They might just be telling themselves your offer is too low and they're trying to justify to themselves why they should take your offer. So they say your offer is too low. Well, what were you hoping to hear? And now they'll tell you what it is that's going through their mind, right? So don't try to jump on anything just because they're sharing that with you. Additionally, you don't want to deal with wishy-washy words. You might hear things like, your offer looks pretty good. I think there's a good chance we'll take your offer. I like what you're telling me. Don't just accept these for what it is. Reverse it. So your offer looks pretty good. And I like what you're telling me because I think there's a good chance we'll take your offer, which means, and you're just helping them complete their thought. Do not settle for the ambiguous words that they'll share with you. I want you to think of a time when your buddy was telling you something and you knew the word but was coming. So you just said to them, but. Next time that happens, instead of say but, say and allow them to finish their thought. So here's a list of words that we use to reverse somebody to extract some more meaning and intent behind their idea. And, like, because, share what's on your mind. I'm confused. I'm confused is great when someone's lying to you because you can't tell a prospect, you're obviously lying to me. So you just say, I'm confused. And they'll tell you exactly what's going on in their mind. And what you wanted me to do is, and if I could, what do you see yourself doing at that point? And the next thing you want to work on is mirroring. So there's several things that you can do to mirror somebody. The first one is matching the speech rate. So the last time you were driving on the road and someone flew by you, what was your thoughts? That guy's crazy. What about the last time you drove and someone was driving really slow? Boy, that driver's an idiot, right? What happens is you got to match somebody's speech rate. So if you're talking faster than a prospect, in their minds, they might be thinking, what's this guy trying to pull on me? What's this salesperson doing? If you talk too slow, they're thinking, man, this guy's an idiot. He can't possibly help me. So what you want to do, you want to match their speech rate. Additionally, you want to match their speech volume. If they're talking really loud, you've got to talk really loud. If they're talking really quietly, you got to talk really quietly. That's building bonding and rapport, right? Who do people want to do business with? They want to do business with people that they know, like, and trust. Who do they know and like and trust the most? People like themselves. You want to match their vocabulary. If they're using big words, you're going to use some big words. If they're using simple words, use simple language. Match their gestures. If their gestures are out here, your gestures need to be out here. If their gestures are really down here, then your gestures need to be down here. And body language, so key. If their arms are crossed, you need to look for this. If their arms are crossed, you got to cross your arms. If they're crossing their legs, cross your legs. If they're leaning forward, you lean forward. If they're leaning backwards, you lean backwards. And the last one is mirroring their breathing. Now, I'm still working on this one, but if you can match their breathing, you will develop rapport. And the next thing is pacing and leading. You've got to meet your prospects emotionally. Visually, I want you to think about if you were meeting a friend at the park and you were late and they started, you have to catch up, you got to run faster to meet them, and then slow down. So if the prospect is angry, you've got to match the intensity. If they're frustrated, you got to acknowledge it. For the guys out there, I want you to think about the time where you were talking to a female companion who was very upset, and you asked them, hey, I'm going to need you to calm down. How did those two words land? Probably not very well. What happened is that your female companion was up here, and you were not just here, but you were going down here when you asked them to calm down. And what happens? They went even further up. So what you need to do is you need to match them emotionally, and at that point, you can bring them down. As a rule, we do not ask verb-led questions because they lead to short answers and lies. We don't ask questions like, are you looking for a cash offer? When are you moving? Who are the decision makers? Will you make a decision today? Or is now a good time? And again, these questions, when they answer them, don't give you a lot of intel. These are really easily lied to. And our job, again, in extracting truth, meaning, and intent, is to be truth seekers. And so how do we do that? We want to ask a lot of what questions and how questions. These questions are open-ended and allow them to fill the space. These questions sound like, what happens next? What stopped you from signing with? How will you know you're working with the right person? How were you hoping we could help? The third question, how will you know you're working with the right person? If you ask this question and when they answer it, they're literally going to give you the keys to unlocking this relationship. Now, my daughters are in piano school, and we had this piano recital. And at this recital, they required some parent volunteers. And the other parent volunteer was a school teacher. So she and I were at the piano recital, and the kids were getting a little rowdy. So she wanted to calm them down. And she says to them, I've got an idea. Let's play a game. All the kids calm down. They're paying attention to her. And she says to them, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 100. What would you ask? Myself, first question I would ask is that number more or less than 50? And that's what the first kid asks. What does my daughter ask? What's the tens digit? Can you see? And asking an open-ended question, how much faster you can get to the truth. How did the teacher respond? That's against the rules. What is she doing? Teaching her kids how not to ask the right questions. I want to take a moment to really emphasize on we ask what stopped you from signing with the other person versus a why question of why didn't you sign with the other person? And the reason why we don't ask a lot of why questions is because why leads to a defensive answer. I want you to think about growing up, when your parents asked you a why question, what were those questions? Why is the TV still on? Why are all the lights on? Or why is your homework not done yet? Why is your room a mess? It was never, why do I love you so much? Why did God bless me with such a wonderful child? Why are you such a great kid? So if the why questions are always an accusatory question, then the natural answer to it is to be defensive. So if you ask them, well, why didn't you sign with the other guy? Or why don't you go with a realtor? They're gonna think, maybe I should have signed with the other guy. Maybe I should go with a realtor. Versus, what stopped you from signing with the other guy? What stopped you from going with the realtor? They're gonna think, and they're gonna give you all the different reasons why they didn't want to go with the other person, right? So don't ask why questions, ask what and how questions. And don't ruin a good thing with a yes or no modifier. What I mean by that is you might be tempted to ask a great question, but you finish a question with right, correct, agreed, doesn't it, wouldn't it? You ask a great question, let them answer it. You make a great statement, let them address it. Do not end it with a yes or no modifier, because again, our job is to seek the truth, is to gather intel. And you end it with a yes or no modifier, you're gonna get a yes or no answer, which gives you very little intel to move forward. Here are a few examples. Sounds like getting a guaranteed offer is important. Versus, sounds like getting a guaranteed offer is important, isn't it? You can see the first one, they're gonna answer it with giving you more information. The second one is gonna be like, well, yes, of course it is. Another one is, and you're not gonna take $1 less than $100,000. They'll think about it. They might respond, well, maybe I'll do this or whatever. Versus, and you won't take an offer less than $100,000, correct? They'll say, yeah, that's correct. And now where are you? You're stuck. Last example, you're looking for the most amount of money, or you're looking for the most amount of money, right? First one, they'll give you some more information. Second one, they're gonna answer it yes, and now you've got no additional intel. You also want to stop and pause. If you ask a great question or you make a great label, stop. Let it ruminate. Let them think about it so they can answer it. Do not ask another question right after you just finished asking a question. Pause, let it simmer, take advantage of that awkward silence. They will fill it and you will gather intel. Growing up, I went to speech and debate in high school. Now I know, a little bit of a nerdy thing, but what we learned was that it was okay to pause, gather your thoughts. No one ever judged you for pausing. I want you to think the last time you bought something and the salesperson took some time to gather their thoughts. Did you jump all over him or her? No, you're a respectful human being. Same thing here. If you need to pause to gather your thoughts with a homeowner, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to know the future, bring it to the present. If you were to ask somebody, what's 3 plus 3, they're probably gonna answer it very quickly, hopefully with the right answer. If you were to ask myself or someone else on my team, what's 3 plus 3, we're gonna pause. Boy, that's a very interesting question. I'm curious, what brought you to ask me that question right now? What are we doing here? We're reversing. We're trying to figure out what's going on. Now, that's an extremely ridiculous example, but I'd rather you be on this ridiculous end of the spectrum than where you might be today. So whatever question they ask, don't answer it. Find out what's the meaning behind the question. So another example might be, talk to a prospect and it says, well, give me a call back at 3 o'clock. Great, I'll give you a call back at 3 o'clock. When I call you back at 3, what will we be discussing then? You want to know the agenda ahead of time, right? And if you get the agenda ahead of time, you might be able to still talk about it right now. Or the classic, if I can pay your price, will you sign today? Kind of strong. I don't know if I can pay your price. If I can come up to your price, what will happen next? Now we're bringing the future into the present. We're not making an offer until they tell us they're ready to sign. You say, if I can pay your price, what happens next? And they say, well, I'm meeting with so-and-so. Guess what? We're not making our offer yet. So if you want to know the future, bring it into the present. Have you had a prospect ask you, well, what's your website? Can you send me some information? Can you show me some reviews? Old us, we would have just sent it to them, right? We might have even sent a brochure in a fancy envelope or whatever. Taking time, labor, materials, postage, and so on. When in reality, they were just wasting our time. So now when someone says, can you send me so-and-so? We'll just ask them, let's pretend I send you that and you like it. What would happen next? And they say, well, if we like it, then we'll do business with you. At that time, we will send it. More often than not, if I send you the proof of funds, if I send you this bank statement, if I could send you the website and you like what happens next, and like, well, I still need to think about it, They're just spinning your wheels. Don't do that. I remember long ago when I would have a lead come in, right? My pay-per-click website, they submit it, I look at it, looks like a hot lead. Call my wife, cancel whatever we got going on so I can rush over to that house. And when I got there, seller wasn't that motivated. They were still meeting with other people. What ended up happening? I wasted a lot of time, right? Also wasn't helping myself at home. Now, when a lead comes in, it sounds super hot, I'm gonna call them, right? To decide if I wanna cancel everything and rush on over. Mr. Homeowner, if I come over and we come to terms and you like my offer, what happens next? And the guy says, I'll sign a contract. At that point, I will cancel whatever else I got going on. But if it's not, I'll sign it, then we're just booking an appointment. There's no reason to cancel everything you got going on for a seller that's not ready to sign with you then and there. What we've learned from neurolinguistics programming is that people process the world in different ways. They're visual-based, audio-based, and kinesthetic-based. If you're dealing with a visually based person, you're gonna wanna use words that are more in alignment with how they process the world. You're gonna use words like looks, seems, appears, pictures, views, shows, reviews, clear. And when you hear these words from them, you wanna use it back. So it seems like you're upset about this. It appears you're a little frustrated. You're trying to get a view of the situation. However, if you're dealing with an audio-based person, you're gonna hear words like sounds, heard, rings, listen, tune in, all ears, silence, resonate, say it, loud, noisy, tell. When you hear these words, when you're labeling to address them, sounds like you're a little frustrated. If I heard you correctly, does it ring true? Listen. And when you're dealing with a kinesthetic-based person, you're gonna hear words like feels, grip, handle, grasp, touch, hold, slip, solid, firm, tension. When you hear these words, you wanna use, when you're labeling, feels like you're uncomfortable here. You're trying to get a grip on the situation, trying to get a handle on the matter. And when you use these words to reflect back on how they communicate, you're gonna resonate more with them. You ever dealt with somebody and you can't tell why you don't like them, but you just know that you don't connect with them? It's these little things. Sales is a slight edge sport. You gotta take advantage of every opportunity, every technique, whatever you can do to minimize this chance of losing rapport with a homeowner. Have you ever been to a playground or maybe the mall and you watch a kid run and trip and get hurt? And when they ran over the mom, all mom had to do was kiss the elbow or the knee and everything was better? Or maybe you've seen kids that are kind of like my kids, where even though they're not bleeding, if they got a Band-Aid, they feel better. I don't know how many Band-Aids we waste a year, because when they come up to me and they're not bleeding, I say they're not bleeding, they don't get a Band-Aid. Mom comes over, gives them a Band-Aid, and everything feels better. When you got a prospect that's in pain, and you can label it and address it verbally, what you've done is the adult version of mommy kissing their boo-boo. So what you wanna do is you wanna label, you wanna address what it is they're going through, and if you can do it appropriately, you can demonstrate that you're listening. You can demonstrate empathy. And if you can demonstrate empathy, you're gonna have a prospect that feels heard, that feels listened to, that feels seen. One of the things that we've heard from other sales trainers is you gotta agree with the prospect. And I strongly disagree with that. You don't have to agree with the prospect. You just need to address them. You need to acknowledge their pain. If you can acknowledge their pain, then it reduces the pain that they're experiencing. So again, you heard us say a moment ago, sounds like, feels like, seems like you're frustrated. And if you can do this effectively, you're gonna be able to build more rapport. Mary Kay, she said a long time ago, if you could just imagine everyone walking around with a sign that says, I need love. If you can act in that way, you will connect with more people, develop more rapport, and then be able to buy more houses. As you progress in your sales career and become a better salesperson, you'll find yourself turning questions into statements. As we said earlier, making assumptions is part of our process, but really making poor assumptions is part of our process. So you hear things like, probably caught you at a bad time. Sounds like you're getting a lot of calls. I get the feeling that it's over. Seems like getting a guaranteed offer is important. Sounds like you're ready to get this over with. And if you can do this consistently, again, if you can make statements, they'll correct you, right? Versus if you ask a question they might be able to lie to you, but we know that human beings do not have the capability to lie to you when they're correcting you. And so if you make a statement and you're wrong, they'll correct you. If you're right, they'll confirm what you said. Either way, you're effectively gathering intel. Think about the last time you were at a restaurant where you ate, the food was really good, and you're stuffed completely full, and that dessert cart comes over, and all that fullness you had in your stomach, suddenly you got a little bit of room, right? What was that old ad? We all have room for Jell-O. I feel like we always have room for dessert. Well, people might be too busy. If you ask people questions, they might not be able to answer for you because they're too busy. However, we all have the time in the world to correct people. So if you make a statement and you're wrong, they will correct you and they feel good about it psychologically. I'll give you an example. I got my friend Brandon, and they're having a gender reveal party. Nothing crazy, not a forest burning event. It was just a simple, come over for dinner, and we're gonna have a gender reveal. And I was, kind of tired. I was like, hey, Brandon, I'm kind of tired. I'm kind of busy. I don't really need to come over. I already know you're having a boy. To which he replies, no, we're having a girl. I didn't know these sales techniques at this time. As a matter of fact, we ended up going over, and he said his wife was upset because he told me that they were having a girl before the gender reveal party. And when she asked him why he did that, he says, I don't know, Steve pulled some ninja crap on me. In reality, it's what I did. I just didn't know at that time that's what I was doing. So again, if I say, hey, Brandon, I don't really want to come over to the gender reveal party. Are you having a boy or a girl? He's going to say, come on over. I'm not telling you. But because I said, I already know you're having a boy, he corrected me immediately and said they're having a girl. And so I want you to look at a couple of these slides here. We have on this Facebook post, right? This is Real Estate Disruptors. This is my Facebook group. And in this 11 hours, 378 people saw this post. He was asking for help. What should I do? Again, 378 people saw this post. There were 0 reactions and 0 comments. Then we got this other post, wholesaling houses full-time, admittedly 10 times larger. In 3 hours, this guy says paying a coach is a waste of money. And he got 148 reactions and 243 comments. By making a statement, whether it's popular or not, people will jump all over it. But if you ask a question, people are just too busy. I saw this funny meme on Instagram. When you finally find a nice, genuine guy who makes you laugh and treats you right, what do? Block him, friend zone him, get back with your ex, travel, maybe play mind games with him. Now that all sounds kind of funny, but this is the reality of what happens. So if you think about back in high school, back in college, the girls always wanted to date the bad boys. Why? Because he really didn't care about her, right? The safe friend is the one that she could always rely on, so he wasn't attractive. So playing hard to get is a very integral part of our sales process. So how do we play hard to get? Well, we're always taking it away. You guys have heard us say, I don't know if we can help. And the reason why we say this is because we want to create some uncertainty. Now I want to emphasize here, when we say, I don't know if we can help you, it's not a question of whether we are able to do our end, right? We're a genius in our world, but an idiot in theirs. When someone asks us if we can close in 7 days, I know for sure we have the ability to close in 7 days, but our answer is going to be, I don't know. I'm not sure whether we can close in 7 days, but I'd love to ask you enough questions to figure out whether we can or not. And again, we know our world, but we don't know their world, and we're asking for permission to ask questions. So by taking it away, we are playing in a certain way hard to get. You guys have heard us talking about establishing rules, right? Well, before we're talking about establishing rules and setting the proper expectations, what we would do as part of our closing is, well, I'm not sure you'd want this in writing. And they say, well, of course I want this in writing. Well, but even if we put it in writing, I'm not sure you'd be able to sign it. Like, no, if you put it in writing, I'll sign it. Not today. And the idea is we want them to pull us in and say, look, just give me the freaking contract so I can sign it, right? So that's taking it away, playing hard to get. And then for our cold calling script, if you've gone through it, one of the things we say is, it's probably not your home. And what we're doing here is we're, again, exasperated, playing hard to get, not entirely confident, and in that behavior, they want to work with us more. Now, it's important when you're working with somebody that when you're staying negative, you're staying just a little bit more negative than them. it's really important that you don't create too much of a chasm one way or the other. So I'll give you an example. When I first signed up for sales training from my old sales coach, I was hot and ready to buy. I reached out to my friend Pace. You guys may know Pace Morby. I was trying to buy more deals from him. At that time, I was only a broker and he was my general contractor who also happened to own a HomeVestor franchise. So I was asking him, Pace, send me your deals, send me your deals. And he would say, look, I already committed to 2 other people. I can't send you my deals. I said, well, I want you to send me your deals. As a wholesaler, he was saying, well, if you're trying to meet more HomeVestor guys, why don't you just hang out with us on Fridays? And I'm thinking, there's a place where you guys all hang out? And he says, yes, every Friday we hang out in this one office. Like, well, tell me more about this office. And it was a Sandler office. So I reach out to the sales trainer and I ask him, hey, I want to sign up for this. What's involved? And I had no idea it was sales training. And what he said to me is like, well, why would you want to be here? This stuff doesn't work in real estate, which obviously you and I know is not quite true because there's a reason why you bought this course. Now, I said, well, it's not even about the sales training, or I don't even care if it works in real estate or not. I myself will make it work. I just want to be in that room. And he says to me, well, what's important about being in that room? And my response is, well, I'm a wholesaler. If I'm in that room, I will naturally do more deals, which is true. I did a deal the first month after I was in it. But he says to me, well, if you just want to meet the people in there, why don't you just stand outside my office and shake their hands as they're walking in? And now I'm explaining, no, you see, they're not going to take me seriously. I need to be part of that room. And he says again, well, as a matter of fact, we actually have scheduled bathroom breaks. If you hang out in the bathrooms, you'll see us in there too. And I said, come on, they're not going to take me seriously. So what was he doing though? I was a super hot prospect. If he told me it was $20,000 to buy, I would have signed up that day, right? But he didn't want to just take my contract or take my money, because if he did, he'd create a little bit of remorse. So he made me fight for it. And so I've had situations where a seller says, I want $160,000. And we say, okay. And we send them the DocuSign. And they open the envelope. And we never hear from them again. Why? Because they know they left money on the table. Put yourself in a position if you were buying a car, right? It says MSRP, $35,000. You call the guy, it says, I'm not paying $1 more than $30,000. And on the other line, the guy says, done. How are you feeling, right? You got to make the prospect fight for it a little bit. So that's a positive prospect. What about an extremely negative prospect? Have you talked to a homeowner that's been taken advantage of, screwed over by previous wholesalers? They're pretty unhappy about the whole situation. So for us, we're going to agree with them. Boy, those wholesalers took advantage of you. They wasted your time. If I was in your situation, I would never talk to another investor again. And they're going to say, well, I mean, not never talk to an investor again. Yeah, but why would you ever talk to someone else after the experience you've had? And I say, well, I still need to sell. But what's happened is you got someone that's super negative, and because we're more negative than them, we're able to bring them down, and now we can lead to a potential conversation about buying their house. Now let's talk about the third type of prospect, a neutral prospect, right? This is often your high equity list. You're going to talk to them, and you're going to be a little bit more negative than them at neutral. And it's, well, why would you talk to a cash investor? Why would you sell your home in this market, right? And we're just pushing them away a little bit, and they're going to argue on why they need to work with us. And I want you to think about, what is the opposite of love? For a long time, I thought the opposite of love is hate. In reality, it's apathy, right? Because if it's hate, you can fix it, you can turn that back around into love. But apathy is really hard to convert, and that's the same thing with neutral. The next thing I want to talk about is emotional anchors. Now, we are all familiar with price anchors, right? If you want to offer $100,000, you start off with 70, so that anything more than 70 sounds good, so we end up at 100. That's fantastic. Well, emotional anchors operate in the same way, but we're talking about emotions. We want to really establish that we're in a really bad spot, that we're really feeling not good about ourselves. So I want to be very clear here. I do not believe in price reductions. Our business model in the Phoenix market is if we contract it, we will close it. We are not in the habit of doing price reductions. However, in our virtual markets, we do unfortunately have to cancel at times or get price reductions because properties are not quite as we thought they were going to look like. Or in Phoenix, if we can't contract at the price we want, we'll do an option contract. It says that we have the opportunity to exercise this contract later on. So with that being said, if we do need to do a price reduction, we don't just call and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, we need to do a price reduction. Because what happens? I freaking knew it. I knew you guys were sneaky. I knew everyone said that you were going to take advantage of us and blah, 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 right? So we don't call just to ask for price reductions. So if we need to do a price reductions because we're in an option contract or we did this virtually, the conversation is going to sound more like, Mr. Homeowner, we had someone come by, they gave us an estimate, and we have a problem. And they're going to say, what's the problem? We're going to have to cancel. And they're going to say, cancel? Well, why do you need to cancel? Well, the bid came in way higher than we anticipated. And because it came in so much higher, the numbers don't work for us. We're going to have to cancel. And when they hear that, they're going to think, well, isn't there something we can do? Maybe we can fix this. And we'll say, well, you know, the bid came in 20,000 higher. There's no way you consider dropping the price 20,000. And at this point, we can start the conversation. But if we call them and say, hey, we need to do a price reduction, we need to drop it 20,000, they're going to tell you to take a hike, right? And that's how we use emotional anchors to get the price reductions the very few times where we absolutely need it. And it's absolutely critical that you watch your tone. It's really easy to sound sarcastic and ruin all the rapport that you've built when you're taking it away. We do know from research that it's 55% body language, 38% tonality, and 7% words. So you got to be really cognizant when you're talking to somebody and using the right tonality. We had someone in our office who really offended someone when he was talking to the prospect and she said she wanted to live on the west side. He's like, you want to live on the west side? You can see here it sounded sarcastic, lost all rapport, versus sounds like it's really important to you that you want to live on the west side. We're listening, we're empathizing, right? So there's a word in the English language, rhymes with truck. It's very universally used. You can use it in almost every application. Why? It's the tonality and how you use the word that gives the word its meaning. Another technique we use a lot is laying trap questions. What are trap questions? It's when we assume the absolute best case and having them tell us why it's not as great as we assumed, right? So for example, we meet with a homeowner and we don't get the contract and they're meeting with a couple other investors after us. When we follow back up with them, we don't say, hey, Mr. Homeowner, how did that appointment go? We're going to say, hey, Mr. Homeowner, I just want to call you, congratulate you on your sale. Just want to put in my notes when you guys are closing. And they're going to say, I haven't closed. I haven't signed anything. It's like, oh, I'm kind of confused. You met with us. You met with a couple other investors. Since we haven't heard back from you, we just assumed that you sold it. And now they're going to tell us what's wrong with those other offers. There'll be moments when you're meeting with a homeowner and they'll tell you, oh, we already have another offer. We'll say, oh, okay, well, that's great. I'm sure it's an amazing offer. You should go sign with that offer. And he's like, what? And I said, yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a great offer. It probably fits everything you want. When are you guys closing? And they're going to say, I haven't signed it yet. It's like, well, I don't understand. You already have another offer. Why are you talking to me? And now they're going to tell you what's wrong with the other offer. And again, now you got something to work against. Another thing we do as far as assuming best case is if someone says, oh, my house isn't for sale anymore, it's like, oh, I'm glad you already sold it, right? We're assuming best case to say, no, it hasn't sold yet. Oh, well, I'm glad you're able to take care of that situation we were talking about before. And say, no, it's not taken care of yet. I don't understand. And we're assuming the absolute best case, and they'll tell us now why that best case assumption was incorrect, and now the door is open and we can actually have a conversation with them. There are two key parts when you're asking trap questions, when and you. You can see it's very assumptive. When you ask them about, when you sign the contract, when are you closing, and when you're assuming this, they're going to, again, for emphasis, tell you exactly why our assumption is wrong. And remember earlier, people are happy to correct us when we make wrong assumptions. As you can see, we really try to do everything we can to not sound like a salesperson. Now, I fully embrace my role as a salesperson. Salespeople are needed in this world. But when people think of salespeople, they don't get the warm and fuzzies. And so we need to make sure we're separating ourselves from what the typical salesperson sounds like. So here are some things I want you to stop saying immediately. Is this Mr. Smith? Is now a good time? How are you doing today? Or are you looking for a cash offer? Now, I'm not trying to beat up on our peers' scripts, but our homeowners these days are familiar with this script. So when you're asking, are you looking for a cash offer? They're ready to respond to that. The word decision, which we're going to beat up on some more later on, I understand. There's nothing wrong with I understand. The only challenge I have with it is it's used in a lot of sales training programs out there. Now, if you're going to say I understand, I encourage you to fill in what it is that you understand. Just a quick tangent here, my own personal experience. When you apologize, saying I'm sorry is an inadequate apology. No one feels better after the words I'm sorry. What you got to explain is what you're sorry about. I'm sorry that I whatever. So if you're going to say I understand, make sure you explain what it is that you understand to demonstrate that you do understand. Good question. We've said this before. Nothing wrong with good questions. Just salespeople use that a lot. Other words, following up, checking in, touching base. Why do we say these words? No other industry uses these words. And then on top of that, saying, I'm just following up. I'm just touching base. So remove the word just. The last three words, retail, terms, ARV. Homeowners have no idea what you're talking about when you're saying retail or ARV. I remember the first time I heard the words retail in this space, I was thinking strip centers, right? So we in this industry are familiar with the words retail and ARV. Don't use that with a homeowner. And the word terms, I understand that some people train using the word terms. If you're going to use the word terms, be very clear that you explain what it is, because if you just leave it out there, homeowner is confused. And if they're confused, they feel dumb. And if they feel dumb, they're associating you with them feeling dumb, and now you're going to lose rapport. Back when I was in college, I had this crazy sound system, right? I listened to a lot of rap music. Don't judge me. That's just who I was when I was growing up. Now, in having a sound system and being an engineer, I learned the importance of a low-pass filter. Now, when I say low-pass filter, that might mean nothing to you. So just let me quickly emphasize or explain what that means. So a low-pass filter, the job is to only allow the lower frequencies into the subwoofer, and anything higher than the lower frequencies gets filtered out. And it's important so that the subwoofer sounds good. Why am I talking about this? The homeowner you're talking to, their heart and mind is the subwoofer, right? And if you don't talk in their language, it's gonna get filtered out. It's gonna be like Charlie Brown, womp, 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 right? So when you're talking to a prospect, if you're telling, if you're talking, if you're explaining, that's all getting filtered out. You're gonna sound like everybody else. They're gonna tune you out. In some ways, we talk about the dating analogy, you're gonna sound like a frat boy saying whatever it is you need to say so you can get what you want. So then how do we get through the filter? We're gonna ask questions. We're gonna make assumptive statements, and we're gonna use third-party stories. And the reason why this is so important is that if you ask questions or make statements, when they answer it and respond to it, whatever they tell you is now gospel. It's now something that we can use as part of our conversation. If you're trying to bring in features and benefits, this is talking and explaining. They don't care. They don't care how it applies to them, right? Unless they've asked for it, it's not important. So talking, explaining, it gets filtered out, does not make it into their heart and minds. But if you're asking questions and they answer it, that's on the table. If you're making assumptive statements and they correct you, that's on the table. If you use a good third-party story and they can relate to it, now that's on the table. So I use this just to be funny, but again, I wanted a giant subwoofer when I was in college. Just think about the subwoofer as the heart and mind of the homeowner, and if you're not properly communicating with them, it's getting filtered out. So how do we use a third-party story? Well, before we get into it, I want to just touch on one quick thing. We learned many, many years ago when we first got into sales, feel, felt, found, right? And feel, felt, found is fantastic. It's I understand how you feel. Other homeowners we talked to in the past have felt the same way, and what they found was, and you just insert whatever fact you want to insert. Again, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the old school sales techniques, and we're trying to do our best to not sound like old school salespeople. So we want to use a third-party story. And the reason why we want to use a third-party story is it demonstrates that we understand what it is that they're going through. We're also not in the crossfire. If we use a third-party story, let's say we're throwing our investor buddies under the bus, we're not receiving the crossfire. They're going to attack those other investors. Additionally, if we're talking about why the third party, why other people in the past we've worked with have enjoyed working with us, they can't cross-examine those testimonials. And it fires the brain. A lot of marketing these days are using stories. And the reason why they're using stories is that if you can tell a good story, it fires the right part of the brains where now they're excited enough to take action. And finally, by using a good third-party story, we know where they stand, right? We'll say, I was talking to so-and-so and they were going through the same exact situation where they were thinking about going on the market and waiting 6 months, and whatever they got, they'd be happy with it. What do you think about their idea? And if they say, oh, that's a great idea, well, now you know this is not someone that you're about to close right now. I don't try to close the sale right now. But they're like, oh my God, 6 months, I can't wait that long. Now you know you found some pain, you got somebody to work with. What are some keys to a good third-party story? First, we got to describe somebody like them. So again, if they're talking about wanting to go on the market, describe somebody that's going on the market. We got to describe the person's problem. That person waited 6 months, and as a result, they weren't able to accomplish A, B, and C. Not saying that's going to happen in your situation, but if that happened to you, how would that affect things? Knowing that, how would you feel, right? So those are the third-party stories, the framework in using a third-party story. We have found 3 very common applications of using a third-party story when we're handling objections from the homeowners on why they should not go with a cash offer. So one of the most common ones, well, let me go with a realtor. So we don't say, oh, you don't want to go with a realtor? We got to go on an inspection. You got to have all these strangers walking through your house, coughing on your clothes, financing, inspection, appraisal, blah, 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 right? We don't want to attack the realtor and say, oh, you want to go with a realtor? Hey, I think that's great. You've got some options. And so, I was actually talking to so-and-so, and they decided to go with a realtor. It's been 6 months, it hasn't sold yet. And, the realtor promised to get $300,000. It's now listed at $270,000. I'm not saying it's going to happen in your situation, but if it did, how would that affect you? And now the homeowner is thinking, oh man, 6 months, and they're not getting what the realtor promised them? Oh man, I can't have that happen to me. And now they're going to start seriously considering working with you. Or they say, we're really committed to going with the highest offer. Going with the highest offer? Okay, well, that makes sense to me. You want to get the most amount of money for your home. And I was actually talking to so-and-so, and when I talked to them, they were actually really distraught. I asked them what was going on, and they said, well, we went with the highest offer, but 2 days before close of escrow, their house is packed, they're in their truck, ready to write the next chapter in their story, and the investor that offered them the most had to cancel on them. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen to you, but if it did, how would it affect things? Knowing that, how does that make you feel? And you can see here, right? They're thinking, oh, if I go with the highest offer, a real risk is they're going to cancel on me 2 days before close of escrow. I can't have that happen. No, I need certainty. But you can see the difference. If I say, don't go with the highest offer, this is going to happen. They're like, whatever. You're just telling me whatever you need to tell me. But if we explain a possible situation, now they're thinking, oh, I cannot have that happen. Or you hear people say, I'm going to fix it myself. Oh, you're going to fix it yourself? That's awesome. You have the wherewithal, the knowledge, time, money, resources. That's great. And again, I was talking to so-and-so, and they were going to do the work themselves because they wanted to squeeze out an extra $10,000, which I understood, right? But they thought the repairs were going to be $20,000. Well, it was $40,000 after they tore out the walls, and they thought it was going to be 2 weeks, and it's now 6 months. So I'm not saying it's going to happen to you, but if it did, how would that affect your situation? Knowing that, how does that make you feel? And you can see we keep talking about how does it make you feel, because remember, people make decisions emotionally and they justify intellectually. Where else have we seen these third-party stories? Well, we haven't seen all of them yet. You're going to see them more later on, but 30-second commercial as part of our cold calling script. History tells me. When we're talking about history tells me, we're using a third-party reference. Investors in the area are offering, right? When we're blowing up our fellow competitors, we're talking about investors are lowballing people, and then they're going to say, oh, I can't have that. Or in these modules, you hear me talking about my wife and my kids. Very personal stories. And the reason why I use this is because it helps communicate, and you can further understand and let it resonate within you, right? We know this from research that in using third-party stories or my own personal stories as part of our teaching, it will sink in and last longer with you. We just spent the last 3 modules talking about when to extract truth, meaning, and intent. And the question we get sometimes is, well, when's the right time to use it? Well, I'll share with you, we use it all the time. From the moment we first reach out to the homeowner until after we close, right? So extracting truth, meaning, intent is not one of the compartments in our sales process, establishing rules, extracting pain, closing the sale. It's not part of any of that. We use it all the time. As a matter of fact, I encourage you to use it at home with your wife, with your kids, with customer service, with employees, with vendors, everywhere. Always use extracting truth, meaning, and intent. In this module, we're going to talk about extracting pain. Now, how did we get here? We already talked about why you needed a system. We talked about establishing the rules, and we spent 3 modules going over extracting truth, meaning, and intent. In this module, we're going over extracting pain. Now, pain has been brought up in multiple sales training programs, and they say you got to find pain, but when they say you got to find pain, they don't really explain what it means to find pain. They just say find pain and move on. And for me, in real estate, I thought, oh, they're in foreclosure, they're in pain. Or they're going through divorce, they're in pain. But that's totally surface level, because when they're in foreclosure, it's entirely intellectual, right? We're not talking about they're stressed out about where the next meal is going to come from. They're not talking about the car getting repossessed. We're not talking about maxed out credit cards, don't know where we're going to put the kids, fights with the spouse, and so on, which are all the pain. That's the real pain versus the pain symptom of a foreclosure notice. And so if you've watched any crime movie where there's a gun scene, what typically happens is someone gets shot and they go to a veterinarian at 2 or 3 in the morning, because if you go to a hospital, they're going to call the police, right? So they always go to a veterinarian, and when they try to pull the bullet out, there's usually no anesthesia, so it's really painful. Now, I have never been shot, right? But I imagine the pain of the bullet wound versus the pain of them extracting the bullet is vastly different. And so when we're talking about the bullet wound, that is a pain symptom, but actually extracting the bullet is really where we're talking about finding pain. Now, that's probably a little gory, a little graphic for you, but this is what we have to do when we're finding pain. And if you watch some of these movies, they might have to extract the bullet 3 different times because they lost it the first 2 times. And in our way, this is a little symbolic of us going through the pain at least 3 times. When you're driving your car, there's normally 2 dials. You got the speedometer, which tells you how fast you're going, and you got the tachometer, which tells you how many revolutions per minute your engine's going, which is, who cares, right? We're just talking semantics here. Well, what I'm talking about is if you look at the tachometer, it goes from green to red. And if you stay in the red, you're going to damage your car. And so what we want to talk about here, how this applies to us, is we got a painometer. And we got 6 different spots on the painometer that we're looking for, right? Problem, reason, impact, how it's affecting them personally, what's costing them, and knowing all that, how do they feel about it? Which you've heard me say a couple times already. Knowing that, how do you feel? And so how this applies is I went to the doctor, right? And for me, I love working. There's nothing worse to me than not working, and that probably sounds a little crazy. So I don't know what it is about doctor's offices, but I'm convinced that they have this massive strategy to figure out how to waste as many people's time as possible. So I know if I show up to a doctor's appointment after 12 o'clock, it's an hour and a half, 2-hour wait. So I always book my appointments at 8 a.m. So I go to the doctor's office at 8 a.m. because they can't possibly be late at 8 a.m. And I'm already irritated because I like to work. Now, I show up and they always ask you the same 2 questions. Have you moved, and has your insurance changed? And the answer is almost always no and no. And even though you tell them your insurance hasn't changed and you haven't moved, they still ask you for an updated insurance card. Why? And then after that, I always offer to pay my deductible, and they say, oh, you don't have a deductible. I say, okay. And then they ask me for my payment for last time because I didn't pay my deductible last time. Again, you see, like I'm just getting a little bit more irritated. And then they ask you to sign the updated HIPAA forms, right? Why has this changed? Why do we have to sign an updated HIPAA form every single time? But we do. And again, I'm getting more irritated. And after dealing with the receptionist, we sit down and we wait. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And then the nurse takes you back to weigh you and check your blood pressure, and then takes you back to the doctor's office, and we do some more small talk and whatever, why are you in here? Whatever. And then you wait another 20 minutes, and then you finally get to see the doctor. And what happens? More small talk. How you doing? How's your family? Blah, blah, blah. I don't care, right? Let's just get into the meat and potatoes of the meeting. And he's reviewing my blood work, and he's looking at it and say, oh, this looks good, this looks good, this looks good. And then he says, huh, as if he's never seen this happen before. And his question is, Steve, does anyone in your family have a history of liver disease? Where am I now on this painometer, right? I went from problem to reason to impact, right? I'm in the yellow, orange area, right? So in waiting and all that small talk, I gradually went to yellow. I'm right now in yellow and orange. And he says, well, Steve, it could be one of three things. It could be a tumor, hepatitis, or you're obese. Where am I now on this painometer? Do I care at this point how much it's gonna cost to fix me? If he said, Steve, it's gonna be $30,000 to fix you, am I gonna hesitate to swipe? If he says it's $100,000, am I gonna hesitate to get a note on my house? If he said it was $5 million, would I hesitate at all? Or I say, no, $5 million, you know what? That's not worth it. I don't need to get this fixed, right? As you can see, this is 2017. I just had my third daughter. I just moved into my new space. I've got about 100 people that rely on me. I have to get this fixed. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because that is your responsibility as a professional home buyer to get the homeowner from green to yellow to orange to red, just like the doctor did to me. Now, for your peace of mind, I was able to get the blood work done, no hepatitis, and I got the ultrasound done immediately, no tumor. So it turns out I was just overweight, and that's the reason why I work out 5 days a week, every single morning. Going back to our example earlier, you can see there's a difference between pain indicators, the foreclosure notice, and personal pain. All these different ways is affecting the person and their family. So why is it so important to dive deep into pain? Well, we know through research that 100% of decisions are made emotionally and then justified intellectually. Now, you may disagree. When we do our workshops live in person, we usually hear votes between 70% to 90% that decisions are made emotionally. But we know this from research. There are people that have had traumatic brain injuries. And what we found is that people that had the traumatic brain injuries where they are no longer able to process emotions cannot make a decision to save their lives. And so we know people buy emotionally and then they justify intellectually. So let me share with you a couple of examples. If you follow me, you know I'm a big car geek, right? And so I bought an Audi S4 many, many years ago. Actually a distress sale from a doctor who bought a Porsche 911 Turbo without talking to his wife, right? So he had to dump his Audi S4. So I bought this car. It's stickered for $68,000. I bought it for $35,000. 3 years used with low mileage. Now, German engineering is absolutely incredible. They have a way so that as soon as the warranty expires, the car starts falling apart. And so I take the car in to the dealership, right? It's German engineering. I want only their people working on it. So I bring it in to get it worked on after the warranty expires. Costs about $3,000 to make the necessary repairs. Transmission, headlights, all that fun stuff. And so I'm walking around the dealership because what do you do when you take your car in to get fixed? You check out the new cars. And so I sit in a newer Audi and it's amazing. It felt like these bucket seats were designed perfectly for my rear. And then you smell that new car smell. It's smelling pretty good. And then you put your hands on the leather stitching. And you start thinking to yourself, you know, my car payments are $328 a month. And I just spent $3,000. And broken out, that's about $250 a month. I can reasonably justify spending $578 a month on a new car. And what did I do? I got a new car. Was that intellectual or emotional? And if you look at my profile on a predictive index, which is a whole nother thing, my strongest point is making decisions objectively based off of facts. But I am not infallible because decisions are made emotionally and then justified intellectually. So I'll give you another example. My wife and I was really pushing hard to buy a Tesla Model X. My friend Greg was the one that told me about the Model X before it even came out. It's been on my vision board. I loved it. I actually have a photo here of my kids in the car at Scottsdale Fashion Square. So I tried to get my wife to buy it, and what did she say to me? We cannot reasonably justify spending $100,000 on a car, which is reasonable. So I tell my friend Greg, hey, you know what? That Model X is off the table. We're not buying it. And he says to me, well, have you told your wife it's the safest possible car you can buy? And I said, no, I haven't done that. So I go back home. I tell her, well, honey, what makes a house a home? And she says, well, the people in it. Right. So wouldn't it make sense to spend as much on a car as you would at a home to protect the people that make the house a home? Well, now I've been able to justify it for her logically. Now we can go to the showroom and have her test drive it. And what do? We got to test the Model X. Now, we didn't spend $100,000. After federal subsidies at that time, it was below $90,000. So it wasn't as bad as she thought it was going to be. How does this apply to us? Well, when you're meeting with homeowners, I want you to recognize that not every homeowner is a real seller for us, right? We are not targeting 100% of homeowners. We are targeting the 2 to 6% of the market at any time that needs a cash offer. Obviously, I believe in sales. I'm teaching this course. I'm very passionate about sales. But I readily recognize that our sales stuff does not matter until we're able to market effectively. There's a saying that professionals sift and sort and amateurs convince. First things first, we need to market to these people to find the people that will accept a cash offer from us. And then at that point, we apply our sales skills to convince them to work with us above any other options. Another thing that happens a lot is you'll talk to somebody and you know they've got pain. You know there's something going on, but they're really keeping their cards close to the chest. And so something I'll say is, we've been talking for about half an hour now, and I haven't heard one compelling reason why we should do business together. What am I missing? And you will find from this expression, from this statement, that now they're going to open up and share with you. And hey, if they don't open up with you and share with you, this is the time to leave, right? So not every homeowner is a real seller for us. Hopefully by now, I've been able to convince you the importance of using pain as part of our process. So how do we open pain? Well, we spent 3 modules going extracting truth, meaning, intent. But what we want to do is actually pick up from when we established the rules, right? Remember we said, if it's yes or a no, I'm going to take it as a no. Is that fair? Can I share with my biggest fear? Now we're going with the pain. And the simple question, there's 3 ways to open it. First one is simple. Why am I here? Max does this all the time. Boy, this home is beautiful. I don't even know. Why am I here? The other one is, how are you hoping that we can help you? And the last one is, if you were able to sign homework on the previous call, which we'll talk about later on, then we'll just go over the homework. Remember on our last call, you were going to write down 2 or 3 of your biggest concerns about selling your home to an investor like myself? What did you write down? And whatever they tell you here, you can start talking about that to begin the pain process. If you're watching this module, odds are you want to get paid like a doctor or even more. Well, if you want to get paid like a doctor, you need to learn how to ask questions like a doctor. Let's say you walked into your doctor's office right now and you said, Doc, I've got some back pain. And he looks at his watch and says, boy, I am so glad you came in here. We just had a cancellation. Come back in 30 minutes and we can begin operating. How are you going to feel? Well, that's what happens when a homeowner asks you for a price and you give them the price. You are prescribing without diagnosing. So then how do we diagnose? Here's some questions a doctor might ask you if you had some back pain. Can you tell me more about the back pain? When's the last time it hurt? How long has this been going on? What have you tried to do about it? Did that work? Who else knows about this? How do you feel about it? Have you given up on trying to deal with the back pain? What would happen if we can't help you? Now let's talk about potential foreclosure situation. Can you tell me more about this foreclosure? Well, I got my hours cut back. Oh, I see. Can you tell me about the last time you got your hours cut back? As a matter of fact, it was 3 weeks ago. Oh, how long have you been getting your hours cut back? It's been about a year now. What do you try to do about it? Try to talk to my mom, try to talk to my rich aunt, try to get another job, whatever it is. Did that work? No. What else have you tried? I've called the bank, blah, blah, blah. How'd that go? Didn't really work well either. Well, how far behind are you on this? I'm actually back, 6 months plus payments, blah, 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 18,000. Oh, I see. How do you feel about that? I'm really frustrated. I don't know what I'm going to do. Have you given up trying to resolve this? No, that's why you're here. Got it. Who else knows about this? No, only my mom. She's the only one I've told about this. Okay. Well, what would happen if we can't help you? You can see here, right? We're going through and we're uncovering, actively re-traumatizing the patient in front of us. Now that might sound kind of crazy, but that is actively our goal because remember, people buy emotionally and they justify intellectually. Now we also want to go through this multiple times.
One of the things we always say is listen, rinse, and repeat. So we heard him say, potentially, well, I went to go get another job. Got it. Tell me more about that. How was it trying to get another job? Well, I had all these interviews. Okay. When's the last time you went to an interview? As a matter of fact, it wasn't that long ago. How did it go? Didn't work out well. What else have you tried? Talk to my rich family members. Okay. How'd that go? Right. And we're going through this whole thing all over again. Now, after you've gone through pain, right, ideally 2 times, maybe 3 times, we want to go shopping. And what I mean by that is you want to get them actively spending that money. So let's pretend 30 days has gone by. We've bought your house. Money is in your bank account. What's the first thing you're doing with the money? We want them to start spending it, right? Because once they start spending it, again, they're emotionally committed to working with you, right? This excitement they're getting in spending that money, they're going to tie it to you. So what are you doing with the money? Or you might say, let's pretend I walked in here today with a briefcase full of cash. I was able to give you exactly what you needed. What are you going to do with the money? Something else you can say to a prospect is, let's pretend we agree to work together and everything's taken care of. Going to bed tonight, you know you can rest your head on your pillow knowing everything's resolved. How would that make you feel? And what we're doing here, again, is we're bringing in the positive emotions and we want them to tie it to us. So them working with us is going to make them feel better. How will you know that you've arrived at your destination? Well, you're going to hear words like frustrated, anxious, worried, angry, concerned, tired, pissed off, exhausted, overwhelmed. When you hear these words, you've arrived. And I bring up this point is you don't want to go too much further beyond this point. Because if you do, you might get them to fall apart in front of you. And that is not the goal here. We're not trying to get someone to break down in front of us. We're trying to get them to be emotionally committed so that they'll work with us. The last thing I'll say here about pain is you got to get uncomfortable. You have a responsibility to the homeowner as a professional home buyer to get you and the homeowner uncomfortable. Now, I grew up as the oldest son of 6 boys in an immigrant family. Having feelings was not a luxury that we had in our home. So I get uncomfortable at times. And you know what? We get through it anyway. And the reason why is because if you won't get uncomfortable for you and the homeowner, they're not going to get committed to you. And if they're not committed to working with you, you're going to subject them to every other wholesaler in the market. And those other wholesalers in your market may not have the same integrity and intentions as you. So if you want to buy their house, you have a responsibility to get uncomfortable for you and the homeowner. Do not let your ego and comfort get in the way of doing business here. When it comes to extracting price, we jokingly refer to this as the money dance. If you think back to maybe when you were elementary school, middle school, or if you saw it on TV, you remember you hang up first? No, you hang up first. No, you hang up first. Well, when it comes to money, you tell me the price first. No, you tell me the price first, right? So there's this game that's going on. Now, before we actually begin negotiating price, what we want to do is we want to secure the perimeter. I look at this as sealing all the escape hatches. We want to deal with all the objections right here, right now, before we talk about price, right? And so what we want to do first, we want to summarize. We just finished paying. So as I understand it, you're very frustrated in dealing with the bank, anxious with the HOA, or overall are just tired and want to get this over with. Did I get that right? And then validating it. And we asked the question, did I get that right? Because we read from another book that if we can hear the prospect say that's right, we're moving in the right direction. So did I get that right? And I say, yes, that's right. Okay, well, I got to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being if nothing changes, no big deal, and 10, we got to take care of this right away. Where are you? And you're going to hear oftentimes a 9 or a 10. If you don't hear a 9 or a 10, pump the brakes, slow down, figure out what you missed. Oftentimes you'll hear a 9 or a 10, and you'll say, you know, everybody says that. And what we found is one of 3 things that can actually stop us from working together. Timing, the price we offer, or maybe other people. In your situation, which of those 3 is most likely to stop us from working together? And the reason why we ask this now is we want all the objections before we get to the very end, we're getting the contract signed. Remember, in our process, we're going for the close in the first 5 to 15 minutes, and then we'll disqualify all along the way. So up until now, we've disqualified off of pain and motivation. Now we're going to talk about price, time frame, and other people, and we're going to see which of those reasons why we should not do business together. And if we can get through all that, then we get everything signed. When it comes to finding price, there's a few questions we like to ask to pull it out of the homeowner. One of the ones we start off with is, well, history tells me the night before or the morning of, the husband and wife generally have a conversation about how much they feel comfortable walking away with on the sale of their home. Would you mind sharing with me what you discussed? And you might hear at this point, I'm not going to share that with you. I get that. Well, what else did you guys discuss? Have them talk some more. And then we follow up with, well, off the record, would you mind sharing with me in round numbers? So what are we doing here? History tells me, there's that third-party reference, right? We are the professionals. Would you mind sharing with me? Because, mom said it's okay to share. And we can say off the record with a slight drop in our voice, well, off the record. Or you can say kind of jokingly, well, off the record, right? But either way, they'll tell you. It's crazy how effective that is. And then share with me in round numbers. Again, mom said it's okay to share, but round numbers, people will hold on to their numbers. If you say, how much did you make last year? But if you ask a friend, well, can you share with me round numbers? They'll tell you exactly how much they made last year. So we say share round numbers and they'll feel comfortable sharing with us. Now, let's say you asked those two sets of lines and nothing happened. Okay, well now it's time to throw our competitors under the bus. So we're gonna say, before we came over, I saw that people that are paying cash are offering between $80,000 and $90,000. Now I'm not saying that's my offer, but let's pretend someone offered you that. What do you see yourself doing then? Now, that number I said is completely arbitrary, right? It's either $20,000 below what we're comfortable paying, or it's what the tax records show. And so when we ask them, what do you see yourself doing then? You'll get one of two responses. First one is, that's an insulting offer, or that's such a low offer, to which we'll understand, yeah, we thought so too. What were you hoping to hear? And now, because we've shared a number, because that's the game, whoever says the number first loses, now that we've shared a number, that's not our number, they will now feel comfortable giving us their number, right? Or they might say, yeah, if someone offered us that, we'll take it. Great, we're done here in the price step, right? So they say, well, we were hoping to hear 120. And if that's more than your number, less than your number, we'll talk about how to approach it then. No matter what they say, we will respond with, well, if I could pay you that, what would happen next? And if they say, well, then we'll sign a contract with you, great. Now we know we've dealt with all possible objections. However, if they tell us we still have a couple other appointments, or we're still meeting with a realtor, or we're still waiting a couple of months, now is not the time to start negotiating. We've got other objections we've got to deal with, okay? So now let's just pretend that they said they would sign a contract with you. Now we just tell them, well, we have a slight problem. They'll ask you, what's the problem? We can't pay that price. Should we talk about that? Right? Now we've isolated the objection. Now let's say you tried all these lines and they still won't share with you their price. The next thing we'll say is, I saw that Toyota Camry you had in the garage. And I was curious, when you bought that car, did you test drive every Camry in town or only the ones that had prices on it? So only the ones that had prices on it. So you can kind of see the predicament we're at. We can only buy houses that have a price tag associated with it. Or what you can do is, we have this from one of our star students, Gino, says, don't tell me you're looking at those other offers for 110, 115. They'll correct you, right? Which is one of our techniques. And once they correct you, now you know where you stand. And the last thing we'll talk about here is you want to make sure that you're negotiating from what's owed on the mortgage, not what Zillow says the property is worth. Because if you're negotiating from market value, you're already behind the 8 ball. You want to negotiate for how much they owe and how much they're going to need to walk away. And from there, we'll figure out if our maximum allowable offer is greater or less than what they need. If our maximum allowable offer is lower than what they need, we got to negotiate. If our maximum allowable offer is higher than the mortgage plus everything they'll need to walk away from the house, now we're in business. One of the greatest travesties I see in our business is when you got a homeowner willing to accept a certain price and you're willing to pay that certain price and you don't get everything signed in writing. For me, that's a disaster, right? So we want to overcome this really in that we never share our number until they're ready to sign. And so when we're talking about the evolution of the relationship with the homeowner, I look at this as 3 different phases. The first one is stranger danger. Who are you? Why should I talk to you? And if you're cold calling, this is the first 5, 15, maybe 30 minutes of the conversation. On an inbound lead, this is the first 30 seconds to 2 minutes of a conversation, right? Once you get past this point, now everything's friendly. Everything's cordial, we're professional, we're actually having a communication, which is good until they hear your number. And once they've heard your number, you've now become commoditized, or I look at it as you've been friend zoned. Don't let this happen to you. And I want you to think back to potentially the last time you bought a car. I remember when I bought a car, I went to the first dealership, Showcase Honda, where I bought my first car. I told them, here's how much I want to pay. Where are you at? And they gave me a number. Then I went to the second dealership. What's your number? Then I went to the third dealership. What's your number? And I had them all compete against each other. What were we doing here? We literally commoditized all the dealerships against each other. Don't allow this to happen to you, which is exactly what happens once you share your number. Once a homeowner feels comfortable knowing your number, you are now a commodity. And you might have experienced this more than a handful of times where you talk to a homeowner, you give them a price, it was nice, it was friendly, man, that's a good number, let me think about it, I'll call you back, and you've never heard from them again. So again, for emphasis, your number cannot be shared until they tell you that they are ready to sign. In our office, the rule is you're not allowed to share your offer until you hear 1 of 3 things. I'm ready to sign, right? We ask what will happen next. Is I'll sign the contract. Great, we're done there. Or they're physically holding a pen in their hand in front of you. Or if you're on the phone, they're literally holding the mouse in front of them, right? So until you hear the words, I'm ready to sign, they're holding a pen or they're holding a mouse, they cannot hear our number. But what if there are other parties involved? Have you dealt in a situation where you got a probate where it's one person dealing with 3 other siblings, or you got a husband and wife and the wife genuinely cannot be there and he has to take that offer to them? Well, we can play this higher authority game. So there was this really bad joke a long time ago, right? You're at the car dealership and the guy says, I need to go to my manager. And you say, well, you know what, you got to go talk to your manager. Let's do this. I'm going to put my wife on the outside of this office. And while you go negotiate with your manager, I will negotiate with my wife. 2 can play at this game. Now, that was a bad joke for many years. And now it's actually part of our regular business practice. So someone says, I need to talk to so-and-so. I'll say, well, I'm still not quite 100% on this number. So how about this? You go talk to whoever you need to talk to. I'm gonna go back to my office, talk to finance, talk to underwriting, and we'll figure out whether we can pay that number. So when do you think you'll have this conversation with whoever? Great. I'll call you back then, and at that point, we'll figure out whether we can pay it or not. So when you jump back on the phone, hey, did you talk to so-and-so? How do they feel about that number? And they say, well, they need more. It's like, oh, man, right? Now you're negotiating again. But they say, yes, we'll take that number. Now you can acknowledge that you can pay your number. And it sounds kind of weird, right? But if they go talk to whoever else and they have with 100% confidence to go back with your number, they will shop your offer. But if they go back without 100% confidence in your number, now they're gonna fight to see if they can get so-and-so to accept your number, and now you've got leverage. And that's how we deal with higher authority. One of the questions I get a lot is, how do I get someone to come down $50,000? So for example, the house is worth $300,000. Seller says, Steve, I want you to make money. I'm reasonable. I'll sell you this $300,000 house for $270,000. You've heard this? But we got to be at $220,000 for our number to work. Now, I would argue that we were not good enough to get someone to drop $50,000 apples to apples. But the good news is we're not often negotiating apples to apples. We're often negotiating apples to oranges. So someone says, Steve, I need $270,000. We'll come back with, boy, it sounds like you're trying to get every last dollar out of your home and you want the convenience of a cash offer. How am I supposed to do that? And that's an accusation audit, right? And we're verbalizing out loud what they want so that they can realize how silly it is what they're asking for. And then we'll follow that up with awkward silence. We're just gonna pause and let them think about what it is that they're asking us for. Now, it's not $270,000 versus 220,000. Again, apples to apples. It's 270,000 and them dealing with a contractor, them dealing with a realtor, getting an inspection, an appraisal, financing, or 220,000 with us, and they don't have to lift a finger, and it's done, and it's closing fast, right? It's not apples to apples, it's apples to oranges. And so with this approach, it's really important that we're talking to the homeowner with a consultative approach versus an adversarial approach. I want you to look at this visually, right? You're both at the dinner table, and you, on the consultative approach, are sitting right next to the homeowner. You guys are sitting on the same side of the table. What does adversarial look like? Well, your house needs a new roof, new paint, new carpet, all these reasons why your house is terrible, and subconsciously, we're calling the kid ugly. Have you ever talked to a mom who would describe their kid as fat, slow, whatever, and she's kind of having fun, and you laugh along, right? You didn't agree too hard. But if you went to a mom and said, boy, your kid's kind of fat or your kid's kind of slow, you're gonna lose all sorts of rapport or more with that mother. When you're insulting the house, you are subconsciously calling their kid ugly. Don't do that. Additionally, you might say, well, I need to make money on this house. Does a homeowner care the slightest bit about whether you make money on this house? Usually not. So then what's the consultative approach? Boy, it seems like you got the options. You got time, money, resources on your side. Yeah, you know what? You should go ahead and get that 270. You know, if you need to do whatever as far as the work goes, I'm sure you've got a contractor in place. You got an interior designer that you love working with, and a realtor that you probably love working with. And you should go ahead and list it and go get your 270. You absolutely deserve it. And now when they tell you that that's not an option, now they're going to argue against themselves about the convenience, right? So we're not telling them they need to do those things. We're saying, boy, it's great that you got time, right? We're assuming best case. You got the time, you got the money, the resources, the connections. You go ahead and do that, and now you'll get the money that you absolutely deserve. And you can see here, this is consultative. And we'll share with them, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, we're never plan A. As a matter of fact, we're rarely plan B. We're an insurance policy. If you got options, go with that. If those options don't work for you, then that's what we're here for. In some ways, this is kind of like a maze. Did you ever go to McDonald's when you were a kid? Back then they had this placemat with this maze. And what happened was you would go draw the line to this way, and that doesn't work. And draw your line this way, that doesn't work. And you draw your line a third way, that doesn't work. And then at the end, you found the exit. Well, the first spot that didn't work, well, you should hire an interior designer. Oh, that's not an option. Okay, well, maybe you should hire a contractor. Oh, that's not an option. Well, maybe you should go with a realtor. That's not an option. Well, then you end up with us, right? And we're Grimace. We're the cash buyer. But we want them to come to that conclusion, not us forcing that conclusion upon them. One thing we're all running into are multiple offer situations. You talk to the homeowner in the first couple of minutes, oh, by the way, we have 4 other offers. Or, hey, you should know, we're meeting with 5 other investors. And when you're running into this, it's hard because they're trying to get you to shop against yourself, right? And we don't do that. That's not the practice that we're in. So someone says, we got multiple offers. First thing we'll say is, boy, it sounds like getting the highest offer is the most important to you. And they're gonna look at you, obviously, we're no idiots, say, hey, you know what, that's fair. You're trying to get the highest offer, you absolutely should. In all the time that I've bought houses, I've never been the highest offer. Knowing that, should I leave? What are we doing here? We're doing a takeaway. And they're gonna say, oh, well, you're already here, why don't you give us an offer? It's like, you know, it's not gonna make sense. Our offer is just not gonna be the best. And I say, okay. As a matter of fact, we surveyed the homeowners that we worked with in the past, and we asked them, even though we weren't the highest offer, why did you decide to go with us? You know what they said? And it doesn't matter what the homeowner tells you at this point, that's exactly what they said. You see here, who has the answers to their questions? They do, not us. Then we're gonna isolate those multiple offers into one offer. You know, I gotta imagine, if I didn't show up today, out of those 4 offers, there's gotta be one offer that you really like the most. They say, well, you know, this is one offer. Perfect. I'm sure that's a great offer. And it's like, really? So, yeah, I mean, it's the best offer. And they say, yeah, it's the best offer. Okay, well, you should probably go with that one. And they'll think, okay. Now, before you sign that, when you ask that investor about how much non-refundable earnest money they're gonna put down, how much did they put? I didn't ask them that question. Oh, okay, well, that's all right. when you ask them about their proof of funds, how much did they put down? I didn't ask them that either. Oh. Now, what have we done? We isolated 4 offers into 1. And now that we got that one, we can stomp all over that offer and we can actually begin the sales process without them even realizing we've started the sales process. According to Chris Voss, we never want to split the difference. However, if you split the difference the right way, it'll actually work to your advantage. Have you ever had a negotiation where you agreed to split the difference, but then after the negotiations were over, you realize, I gave up way more than half? What happened? Well, possibly this happened, inadvertently. Someone said we should split the difference. He said yes, and then you guys split the difference again. So how do we do this? What we want to do when we're splitting the difference the right way is we want to imply that we want to split the difference. You know, we're only $10,000 apart. It'd be a shame for this not to work out. If there's only a way where we can kind of make this work. And they'll say, well, what if we split the difference? Oh, okay. Well, what does that sound like? And they'll say, well, I'm at 100,000, you're at 90,000. What if we split the difference? I'm at 95,000. And we'll say, 95,000. So you're okay with 95,000. I was at 90. Well, I mean, what if we did 93,000? And now we split the difference twice, and they won't know exactly what happened here. Another thing we see all the time is, for whatever reason in our industry, everyone always offers to pay all closing costs. And I think that's great. I'm not opposed to paying all closing costs. The thing I suggest is maybe that should be our first throwaway. If your marketing piece says we pay all closing costs, then obviously you need to pay all closing costs. But if you're talking to somebody and you're negotiating, I think paying all closing costs should just be your very first throwaway, something that you can give away very quickly and they'll feel good about it, right? They will feel like they won, even though it's something that you were totally fine giving away. After we give away all closing costs, then we'll talk about the last mile. Man, what if we paid for a moving truck? What if we paid for a storage situation? Or what if you can stay another month rent-free? And what we're doing is, by offering these last random throw-ins, it shows that we have no more cash to offer, right? We are literally at the end of what we can offer. And make sure you end your offer with an odd number. So, you know, let's say we offered $93,713. Those odd numbers in their mind, they're gonna think, oh, wow, we literally got every last dollar out of them. Even better, if you can work out the math in front of them so they can see that this is the last dollar that you have to pay. Another common mistake we see all the time when it comes to price is, this is the phase where we pull the number out of them. And that's absolutely critical. After we pull that number out of them, we gotta get them to negotiate against themselves to a number that you're willing to pay. If they haven't shared with you a number that they're willing to accept that's less than a number you're willing to pay, you cannot leave the price step. You gotta stay here. If you have to leave the negotiations, then you gotta leave the negotiations. But you cannot leave the price step and continue to decision makers and time frame until they've told you that they're willing to accept the number that you're willing to pay.
Real quick, then we'll get right back to it. We built objection-proof AI to do 3 things. 1, call every new lead back in seconds, 24/7, handle the objections, and book the appointment. 2, grade and coach every call your team makes so that your close rates keep climbing. And 3, help you scale your wholesale operation without adding headcount, so that you never miss a lead or lose a deal to slow follow-up again. If you want that for your business, go to the link in the description and book a call with our team. We guarantee you'll get at least 10 to 50 signed contracts in the next 90 days. Now back to it.
Now that we're done with price, we got to extract decision makers and time frame. Have you watched Fight Club? If you have, you remember the first rule. The first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. What's the second rule of Fight Club? You do not talk about Fight Club. Now, I'm going to use a cheesy dad joke here, right? What's the first rule of Sales Club? You don't talk about decisions. And the reason why I say this is you want to think about every industry that uses the word decision. Real estate sales, car sales, insurance sales, everything having to do with sales. The only industry that I can think of that talks about decisions that's not sales is medical, and that's even worse. So get rid of the word decision when you're talking to a prospect. So If you can't ask decisions, then what are the questions that you can't ask? Who are the decision makers? Will all decision makers be present? But let's say you accidentally ask this question, and the guy says, I'm the decision maker. You just want to follow that up with, you mean to tell me you never get any help? The last time you bought your home or sold a home, you didn't have to talk to anybody? And they say, nope. Okay, now you feel a little confident, right? So if you can't ask who are the decision makers, what can you ask? Who else has input on the sale of your home? Who's going to be impacted when you sell your home? Who has veto power? Who would oppose the sale of your home? You think when they answer these questions, you're going to find out who the other decision makers are? And the last one is, I got burned so many times by husbands who said that I'm the decision maker. My wife's going to do whatever I say, right? Or we already talked about this and she's comfortable. What we want to follow that up with is, you mean to tell me if we agree on price today, you don't even need to call your wife? And if they say, no, of course I have to call her. Well, then let's get her on the phone here, right? So that's what we do when it comes to decision makers. And when it comes to time frame, we follow a pretty similar methodology. We don't ask the questions because they're ready for it. How soon were you looking to move? When do you need this done by? How soon will you need the money? They're going to be prepared for that and they're going to lie to it. So what do? We're going to assume that they've got time, right? Go long, pick a holiday 6 months from now, right? So let's pretend it's summer for you and you're saying, well, you're looking to have this done by like what, Christmas? It's like, oh no, it's got to be much sooner than that. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. How come it has to be done so soon? And what's happening here is we have this habit of thinking because we're a cash buyer, we deserve to buy it lower, right? We deserve to make a lower offer, which I don't disagree with that assessment, but it's different when you come in with the attitude versus you meet with a homeowner and he says, oh, it's got to be done much sooner than that. Oh, it has to be done how fast? Wow, 14 days? And at that price? Oh man, we can't pay you that price that fast. And now they're convincing themselves why they have to take less because they want the convenience of a fast close. So versus us telling them they need to accept less because it's cash, now they're justifying themselves. Do I want a faster close or do I want cash? And that's their choice. I remember when I first got into real estate, a coach said to me that a closing is just a natural conclusion to a good appointment. And so for us, when we're confirming terms, this is our way of just concluding the appointment. And so the first thing is there's no new information. If you haven't talked about it up until this point, you are not allowed to talk about it. Don't talk about your partner's walking through the house. Don't talk about the escrow process. Don't talk about the financing or the hard money. We've had people in our program lose a deal potentially because they're talking about scorched earth policy, which we'll talk about in a second. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about maybe buying a house. We actually had a situation on our team where they met with the homeowner and the homeowner was ready to go. We had a verbal and everything. And then we sent our agent over there to get them qualified to buy a house. And the homeowner said, oh my goodness, is that hard buying a house? I'd rather just stay here. What did we do? We inserted new information to screw ourselves from buying a home. So if you haven't talked about it now, don't talk about it here. No new information is allowed. So what's the first thing that we do then? We want to reestablish, remind them the rules we talked about in the very beginning. Hey, remember in the very beginning, we said that if the price we offered you didn't work or you weren't quite convinced we were your guy, you were just gonna tell us no. Remember that? They'll say, yeah, I remember that. And if it was a yes, we're gonna put everything in writing. Are we still on the same page? They'll say, yeah, we're still on the same page. And it's really important you do this because your appointment might have started 30 minutes ago. It might have started 3 hours ago. They may not remember at all what they agreed to in the very beginning, right? So we want to reestablish the rules we agreed upon in the very first 5 to 15 minutes of the appointment. And then we're gonna go over the pain. As I understand it, frustrated about this, anxious about that, exhausted about that. Yeah, great. And you were looking for an offer between $130,000 and $150,000. And they always make a joke like, well, if it's $150,000, it's like, yeah, I get that, right? But you're looking for an offer between $130,000 and $150,000. They'll say, yes, great. And you're looking to have this done in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Yes. And there's nobody that can veto this. Correct. So what have we done? We've confirmed price, decision makers, and time frame. We're all on the same page as to an offer they're willing to accept. And so the next thing we want to do is the inoffensive close. And how does an inoffensive close sound? Given the questions and answers that we've shared so far today, do you feel like I understand what's going on in your world? They'll say yes, hopefully. And do you believe that we can help you? Yes. Well, I got an uncomfortable question. What's that? Do you want my help? And they'll say, yeah, I do. What would you like me to do now? And they'll say, well, in the beginning you said that we're gonna put everything in writing, only if you're comfortable. Or they might say, I don't know what to do now. Say, well, normally at this point, homeowners ask us to put everything in writing. It's like, oh yeah, that's what I want. Only if you're comfortable. Now, there are a couple of key words we use here. Do you feel like I understand, right? Feel. We want them to agree that they feel a certain way, right? And they believe that we can help you. And the reason why I say believe is because people will meet with you based off of hope, but they'll only work with you based off of belief. So we say believe for a very specific reason. And there are a couple of really important points here. You never heard me ask for the sale. We always ask them, what do they want? What would happen next? What would you like me to do? Versus, are you ready to sign? Will you sign today? And the reason why is one is totally neutral or maybe even taking it away, and the other is pressing forward. And the old rule, pursued prospects run away. We don't want to be the one pursuing. We want to take it away or be neutral and have them to move forward versus us demanding them to move forward. And then we got the objection annihilator. Let's just assume you did everything perfectly right. 10 out of 10. You established the rules, you crushed it. You talk about time frame, decision makers, and money, and pain, and you rocked it. And you get to the very end, and they told you, well, I still need to think about it. First thing we do is we're kind of confused. I don't understand. You promised me you weren't going to think about it, and now you're telling me you got to think about it. Did I do something wrong? And they're like, no, you didn't do anything wrong. Okay, well, is it the process you need to think about? And they say, no, it's not the process. Oh, I got it, it's the price. You got to think about the price. And I say, no, it's not the price. Oh, I get it. It's me. You're not comfortable with me. And at this point, if you've done any kind of a good job, they'll jump out of their seat and tell you exactly what's going on. And you might find out that maybe they met with somebody else that they promised they wouldn't sign anything until they met with them again. Right? Maybe they're shopping their offer or shopping your offer versus their offer or whatever. Whatever games they were playing, or maybe it was the price and they're playing hardball, whatever the truth is, it'll come out now. And if you're paying attention, we've done two things here. We've played sad puppy and assumptive statement. And it's that combination that gets them to jump out and tell us what it is we're missing. And any black swans that have been waiting this whole time will come out here. All right, we've got the signed contract. We did everything right. If you're like me, when I first started, I could not wait to get out of the house because what if they change their minds before I leave? So we can't do that. So have you ever had a homeowner's adult kids blow up your deal, right? They call and say, Mom, you got taken advantage of. You can't move forward with that guy. Or have you had a seller go dark about 2 days after a signed contract or 2 days before close of escrow? And is it possible, just possible, that after you sign this contract that other investors are calling your clients, maybe texting them, leaving a voicemail, mailing them, posting billboards, or maybe TV ads or Google pay-per-click? Just possible, right? And so what we want to do before we leave is we want to build a moat around the house, just like you saw in the dark ages with the castles. And how do we prevent seller's remorse? Well, the first thing is we take the contract that they just signed with us, we'll hand it back to them and ask them, what does this mean to you? And they'll tell us it's a contract. Well, what it means to me is finally taking care of A, B, and C. If there's any reason at all you feel uncomfortable working with us, can you just do me a favor and cancel the contract right now? And they're gonna look at you like, no, don't cancel this contract, I need this, right? And what we're doing is we're gonna find out if there's any challenges at all, any doubts in their head. Because if there are, would you rather find out now or after they go dark, right? And also on top of that, by giving them option to cancel now, they won't want to cancel on you later on. They're going to feel guilty about it. I'll share with you a little bit about how I ran through that same experience as well. Then we're going to ask them, like, is there anybody that's going to interject at all? And you might have uncovered that earlier while we were finding decision makers, or they might tell you, well, you know, my realtor friends or my kids or whatever. And we're going to ask them, and what are you going to tell them? And they might say, well, it's my house, I'm going to do whatever I want. whatever it is they're gonna tell them, what you wanna do is you wanna have them rehearse at least once. Not a great rehearsal, but just something for them to say out loud once. So that when the realtor friend or their kids say, Mom, they took advantage, he's like, well, this is my house, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do with it. Versus them never having said one word track ever. And when they say, Mom, you got taken advantage of, they're gonna think, oh, wow, I did get taken advantage of. Or when the realtor buddy says, oh, why'd you sell it for so low? I was like, I don't know why I sold it for so low. But if they've said it once, this is my house, I'm gonna do whatever I want, at least now you got a fighting chance. And this is not a foolproof system, but it's better than zero. And then the last one is for us in the Phoenix market, especially, is we always want to have this conversation about them receiving higher offers. So we're going to say, well, in the next 14 to 21 days, you're going to be getting phone calls, emails, text messages, and so on, people offering you more money. What are you going to tell them? And they're going to say, well, if I get a higher offer, I should probably listen to them. Then we'll say, well, we have a problem. They'll ask you what the problem is. Well, I'm going to go back to my office. I'm going to tell my team we're buying your house. We're going to go with title, open escrow, get the title commitment, start the research, and we're going to move our money and set it aside. So to make sure we have the money ready to buy your home when we're ready to close. If you're telling me you're not committed to us, then I can't go back and tell my team to move everything forward. And they're going to say, oh, we had no idea how much was involved in buying a house. Yeah, if we get another offer or we get other people, we're going to tell them, Steve, you're my guy. And whatever concessions you need from a homeowner, now is the time to ask it. Whether you need a key, you need to put a lockbox on the property, you need to listen on the MLS, whatever concessions you need, now is the time to ask it. Because if you ask for it in 7 days or 21 days, they're going to start thinking, is Steve really going to buy my house? Right? They're going to have some doubts. But if you ask it right now, emotions are high, they're sold on you, they're committed to the process. This is the process, and they're going to be totally okay with whatever it is you ask of them right now. As we're going through all of this, I want you to think, has any of these things ever happened to you? Has preventing remorse happened to you? It's happened to me. So I bought a car. This is back in 2007. I was a realtor and times were not good, right? So we bought a 1997 Camry and we're buying it from this car dealer. And I remember the guy just making these weird comments, right? Like, I'm late for my daughter's birthday party. I need to get going. He never once asked for the sale. In fact, it was so bad. Actually, I told my broker the next day, it's like, man, that was the worst salesperson. He never once asked for the order. My broker asked me, well, did you buy the car? I said, yes. He says, then you probably was a really good salesperson. I said, oh, okay. And so it was a used car. We didn't buy it right then and there. We actually wanted to get it checked by mechanics. So I took it to Pep Boys, get the car looked at, and it needed to, the wiper fluid tank needed to be replaced. So we got it replaced, right? We bring it back, and my wife says to me, are you sure you want to buy this car? And I said to her, I looked right at my wife and I said, we made a promise to this guy and we're not going to cancel the contract now. And looking back, I'm quite convinced he prevented remorse on us. If you're in wholesaling, you're probably aware that the Phoenix market is one of the most competitive markets in the country. We have a lot of wholesalers, probably because we're also the guru capital of the world. Now here's the thing. With all us wholesalers, we're pretty friendly with one another. We actually mastermind together, help each other, actually compare notes. But there's one place we were not friendly with each other, and that's in the living room. So we actually practice a policy called the Scorched Earth policy. If you're not familiar with the Scorched Earth policy, this actually goes back to biblical times. What happens is one country would invade another country, and if they fail and they have to retreat, they'll literally burn the villages, salt the earth while they're escaping, to make sure that the other country cannot pursue them. How does that apply to our business? Well, if we're not getting the house, nobody's getting the house. So we will literally plant landmines under the welcome mats, under the sofa cushions, and in the kitchen cabinets. So anyone that's coming in after us, they're getting blown up. To begin scorching the earth, what we want to do is we want to let them know we're not buying their house. Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, it sounds like we're not going to be a buyer for your home. So should we go? And after they say we should go, before I leave, I want to make sure that no one takes advantage of you. Let me go ahead and take off my house buyer hat and put on my trusted advisor hat. You have a pen and paper handy? I want to make sure you write these things down so that you can ask the next person after us these same set of questions. And we want them to write this down because we want to make sure that they actually ask these questions after we leave. So the first thing in scorching the earth is a non-refundable earnest money deposit. So we want to coach the homeowner. Make sure the next person you meet with that you get a $10,000 non-refundable earnest money deposit. they might ask you why. It's like, well, if they're buying your home for $180,000, but they don't have $10,000 to put down, does that give you any cause for concern? Exactly. The second thing you want to coach the homeowner on is the importance of a non-assignable contract. So we'll tell them, make sure whoever comes in after us, that when they write the contract, that you put in there that the contract is not assignable. What happens is that the home buyer that's pretending to be a cash buyer doesn't actually have the money to buy your house, and they're going to sell the contract. So how you want to explain this to the homeowner? I was talking to so-and-so, and they actually called us right before close, and they were freaking out. And we asked them what was going on. They said, well, the investor canceled on them because they couldn't move the property. So I'm not saying this will happen to you, but if you were expecting to close and your house is packed, you're in your truck 2 days before close of escrow, and investor calls to cancel on you, how's that going to affect things? How would you feel? So you can see how important it is to make sure that you get the contract that's not assignable. The third thing you want to coach them on is the importance of a no due diligence period. So we'll tell them, when I came over today, this was my inspection. I don't have to do any additional inspections. So make sure if you're going to meet with somebody else that they don't have anyone else coming after them and they have a no due diligence period, right? Because what you don't want to have is they'll send an inspector over or a contractor, and then they'll tell you 5 or 10 days later on that they have to cancel their contract. So make sure that you put in the contract no due diligence period. Another thing to coach them on is the importance of nobody new being allowed in the house. So they'll tell you, I got my financial partner, my contractors, whoever come in after the house. For anyone that's coming in after them, make sure you ask them for a copy of their driver's license, because you don't want any strangers walking through your home. And the last thing to coach them on is the importance of proof of funds. So just tell them, make sure whoever comes in after us, they also provide you a copy of their proof of funds, because some of these guys that are cash buyers are actually going to get a hard money loan to buy your house, and that's basically a mortgage. And when you met with us, it was really important to you that we were buying it cash and not having to get a mortgage. So if they're getting a hard money loan, that means that their mortgage might get declined right before close. And again, I can't speak for your situation, but I was talking to another person and they were ready to go. They were ready to move on in their lives. And the buyer that was a cash buyer called and canceled because they couldn't get their mortgage approved. If that happened to you, how would that affect things? Knowing that, how do you feel? So you can see the importance of getting a proof of funds from anyone that you can meet after us. Now that's a scorched earth policy when you're dealing with other investors. What about realtors? Because we run into realtors as well. So we'll tell them, make sure whatever realtor you decide to work with, that you put in the contract that if they say their house is worth $300,000 and they have to do a price reduction, it comes out on their end. Because why should that money come out of your pocket? And you will not find another homeowner that will disagree with that, right? So A, you're already winning there. Additionally, make sure if the realtor's so confident about the value of your home that if they can't sell at that price, that they'll buy it themselves. They're gonna look at you kind of funny, right? So that's the second thing. And the third thing is make sure that you put with the realtor that if they can't sell it after 30 days, that they will refund or waive their commission. Because if they're so confident that they can sell your house at this price, they should have no problems putting their money behind it. So that's how we scorch the earth when we're dealing against realtors. As you're watching this module, you probably have a couple of thoughts come to mind. Maybe the first one is, but Steve, I can't do that. Or, I thought you were a wholesaler. You don't assign contracts? So here's the great thing. When you do this, the likelihood of them turning this around on you is almost zero. They're not gonna ask you so much for the $10,000 non-refundable, or the contract's not assignable, or no due diligence period, and so on. So as we've been doing this, we found that the only one that people ever come back to ask for is the $10,000 non-refundable earnest. So here's the good news. On those deals, they were good deals for us. We didn't mind. And that's only happened 3 times ever. So what you want to do is you want to adjust for your market. So maybe 10,000 is unreasonable. Maybe it's 5, maybe it's 3, it could be 1,000 or 500. No matter what you offer, it's higher than your competition. I got one friend that does 20,000 non-refundable earnest money deposit. Another one that we see changed a lot is the non-assignable. Now, for us in Phoenix, we don't have transfer taxes. So for us, it's not a big deal to double close it, right? If we have to walk away with $1,700 less, that's not a big deal for us. But if you're in a market where you have to pay transfer taxes, then modify this accordingly. As you scorch the earth, you're gonna get one of three responses. First one is, oh my goodness, I had no idea how bad this industry was. I'd rather just go with you. What price do I need to be at to go with you? That's the ideal case. I wish it happened all the time. Happens every once in a while. The second scenario is, wow, you're right. They'll go out, talk to other wholesalers, and they'll find out that the other wholesalers would scoff at these suggestions, right? And they'll come back to us. And now they're ready to work with us. This one we see happen a lot, and our clients love this one. And the third one is, you never hear from the homeowner again. And sadly, this is the most common outcome, but if you can buy an extra 2 or 3 houses every single quarter, scorching the earth regularly, wouldn't it be worth it to scorch the earth at every home? And finally, I want to make sure that you're only using this when it's absolutely necessary. If you're still in negotiations, don't bring any of this up, right? You're only bringing it up when you're finding that, we're pretty close, but we can't get this done, and you're walking away. So it sounds like we're not going to be able to buy your house. Should I leave? And if they say yes, that's when we begin scorching the earth. Only use this when you can't buy the house. Do not educate them otherwise. And now we get to talk about everyone's favorite topic, cold calling. So, okay, maybe it's not your favorite. There's a few things we want to remove from our dialogue when we're talking to somebody. You guys recall, we want to avoid sounding like an amateur salesperson. So, first one, remove, is Mr. Smith there? Think about when your mom's called you or your friends have called you, did they refer to you as Mr. Smith? Or maybe when they're calling you by your first name, hi, is John there? Kind of a weird way to introduce yourself. Second thing you want to remove is, how are you doing today? I don't know what it is, but it seems like every salesperson has that same melodic tune when they're calling people and saying, how are you doing today? What happens with how are you doing is one of three things. First, if they're having a great day, they can't wait to tell you about it. Man, I'm so glad you asked me that question. I woke up early this morning. I got my workout in. In fact, I finished that early. I got to go to the store, run some errands. Then I was able to get my kids ready for school. Then I got to do this or that, whatever. They can't wait to tell you how great a morning they've had. So don't ask that question for that reason. Other thing they might tell you is they're having a terrible day, right? My dog just died. My grandma's super sick. How are you going to have that conversation? If they're telling you how bad a mood or how bad a day they're having, it's kind of hard to have a sales conversation. So what's the third one? You sound like a salesperson. They already know you're a salesperson and they don't want to talk to you anymore, right? So stop asking, how are you doing today? The other one, is now a good time? This one is not necessarily a sales question, but you hear a lot of salespeople say this, so I'll share with you how we introduce whether it's a good or bad time to call. And the last one is, are you looking for a cash offer? We've seen a lot of scripts out there, and a lot of them have in their script, are you looking for a cash offer? And what we found is when you ask this question, they've heard it so many times, their natural response is, well, what's your offer? And now we're dealing with objections right off the bat. So stop asking if you're looking for a cash offer. Now there are a few keys to cold calling effectively. First one is, you want to call as if you're their friend. Have you ever gone to the mall or the supermarket and someone walks up to you and they got this big beaming smile, they're so happy to see you, and they call you by your first name. And in your mind, you're like, who is this person? How do they know me? How do I know them? Was I at a party? Is this a coworker? Who is this person? What's happened is this is a pattern interrupt, right? You're not sure exactly how to respond to this. When we cold call people, we want to call them by their first name as if we're their friends. Hey, John. And that will cause them to pause and pay attention to the call. We learned to stop asking, is now a good time? And the reason why was if they told us no, it was kind of tough to overcome that resistance initially. So we started asking, is now a bad time? And if they said no, we could continue. Now we deal with the interruption by just telling them, probably caught you at a bad time. And they'll let us know whether we can continue or not. The fact of the matter is, when you cold call somebody, we're interrupting them from doing something, and by telling them probably caught them at a bad time, they'll let us know whether we can continue or not. But usually they're pretty curious, and it allows us to kind of move forward further along into the conversation. Another thing we do when we're cold calling is we sound exasperated. We want to be lost. So we're trying to reach the homeowner at 123 Main Street. That's probably not your house. And what we want to have occur is they're gonna say, oh no, that is my house. What's this about, right? Versus, are you looking for a cash offer on 123 Main Street? What's your offer, right? Initial resistance. We wanna minimize resistance as much as possible by being lost, by being exasperated. They're gonna wanna work with us. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, refer back to our module on the lost puppy. The next thing we're gonna do when we're cold calling is we're gonna ask them for permission to talk to them, right? Can I take 30 seconds, share with you why I called, and you let me know whether we should continue this conversation? And they're gonna say, well, what's it about? And at this point, we'll introduce our 30-second commercial. In our 30-second commercial, what we wanna do is describe people like them, right? So if you're dealing with people in foreclosure, mention people in foreclosure. If you're dealing with people in HOA that they're unhappy with or code violations, mention the code violations, right? So it might sound something like, the homeowners we worked with in the past were really frustrated in dealing with the bank. They were really upset with their city about all these code violations, or overall just don't want to deal with a realtor and selling their house. I don't suppose any of those apply to you. And if they tell you yes, and they start talking, at this point, Mr. Homeowner, can we just take a second? I told you I was gonna ask you for 30 seconds. Should we continue? And at this point, we're dealing with the fact that we asked them for 30 seconds, and now they're telling us that they want to continue that conversation, which they do, of course, because they've said yes, right? It's their turn to talk. Of course, they're going to agree to it. The reason why this is important is if you don't address it here, and this conversation takes 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and they're about to go somewhere, now they're upset with you, and you're going to lose any chance of rapport and working with this seller. Now, you might have noticed we said, I don't suppose any of this applies to you. What we're doing here is we're leading with a negative. And when we say it doesn't apply to you, and they say it doesn't, we're going to transition to, well, and you probably don't have any rental properties or pieces of land you'd be interested in selling? Nope. Got it. And you don't know anybody that's thinking about selling a property? Nope. Thank you. Have a great day. We've assumed this whole time that they have no business to work with us. And when they tell us no, no, and no, we can move on because our ego has not been put out at risk. Versus, are you interested in selling? No. Oh, well, you have any rental properties? No. Oh, got it. You know anybody? No. Okay, right? So we're not risking our ego, but if we're wrong and they correct us and tell us that they are interested in working with us, so now it's a good thing, right? I'd rather be wrong and have the potential to make money, or just be right and just move along. In which case, our ego is never at risk. And we're doing all these things here to increase the number of quality conversations. And that's how we open a cold call. And that's really the most important part. How you deal with the rest of the cold call is entirely up to you. That's just how we increase the number of quality conversations we have with people we're cold calling. Now, to end the cold call, there's a few other things you want to do. First thing is you want to assign homework, right? We want to increase the number of homeowners that are going to actually meet with us. So, Mr. Homeowner, before we go, can you write down 2 or 3 of your biggest concerns about selling your home to a cash buyer like myself? And as they commit to doing the homework, they're more likely to meet with you. Additionally, we want to deal with possible no-shows, right? Unfortunately, this happens. So we're going to tell them, you know, if something comes up on my end and I can't make it for whatever reason, I will be sure to give you a phone call. If something comes up on your end, how will you let me know? And they're going to say, I'll give you a call. All right, perfect. And you have my number? Or I'll send you a text message. That sounds great. And you have my phone number? Or I'll send you an email. Great, you got a pen handy? I'll be sure to give you my email. What we're doing is we're having them bought into the process of how they're gonna cancel. Because if we just say, hey, if you can't make it, will you let me know? Everyone's gonna say yes. So how will you let me know? And now they're gonna be bought in and they'll actually let you know. And we have a policy in our office, we actually do not confirm appointments. So when you're dealing with a homeowner, we don't call to confirm, because what we found is by calling to confirm, people will actually cancel on us. So we treat this like every other home appointment. Think about yourself. If you schedule an appointment with an electrician, a plumber, landscaper, pool guy, do you no-show those appointments, or you generally make sure that you're present for those appointments? So don't call to confirm, because all that does is lead to actually a number of increased cancellations. And then finally, we set the expectations. Mr. Homeowner, when I come over tomorrow, my intention is actually to buy a home. I just want to make sure you're comfortable with that. Now, we're not saying that it's going to be a yes or a no. We're not establishing hard rules. We're just letting them know our intention is to buy a house, so that when we set the rules and expectations later on, it's not as out of the blue when they hear it later on. Something funny happens as we progress in this business. When we cash that very first check, man, it is so exciting. Even the second, third, fourth, and fifth check, we celebrate those. But after a while, we stop celebrating the checks and we celebrate contracts, which is fine, right? Because contracts will lead to closings. But what I want you to look at is instead of celebrating contracts, maybe celebrate dial attempts. So bear with me here. Here are some numbers we found in surveying wholesalers across the country. The average fee we found is $15,000 for every assignment. Now, $15,000 per closing, we also find about 2 contracts to get 1 closing. Most wholesalers close 1 and 2. So if we're talking about a $15,000 fee, every signed contract is worth $7,500, which is pretty good. We also know that most wholesalers take about 3 appointments to get 1 contract. So that means that every 3 appointments you go on is resulting in $7,500. That means every 1 appointment is $2,500. So every booked appointment you get or every held appointment, that's $2,500. We should celebrate those, but we don't. But let's take a step further. We also know it takes about 100 conversations to get 1 appointment. So $15,000 broken down to 2 contracts, 3 appointments, 100 conversations. It's about $25 per conversation. Now those conversations seem a little more worthwhile. We also know it takes about 10 dials to get 1 conversation. So broken out, that's about $2.50 per dial. So knowing you're making about $2.50 per dial, how many dials can you make per hour? Let's say my numbers are totally wrong, right? It's not $2.50 per dial, it's only $1 a dial. Could you fit in 60 dials an hour, 100 dials an hour, right? 100 dials an hour would result in basically $200,000 a year. Could you do that? Now let's pretend you're running a team. So what we have in our organization is we want to celebrate rejection. So we don't look at $15,000 per contract, we look at dollars per no. And we want to reward as many no's as we get in our office, right? The more no's we get means more yeses we get. So we want to celebrate rejection in our office. As a matter of fact, on our team, whoever has the most dials in a week gets a free lunch on us every single week. What about inbound calls? So there's a few things we want to do in inbound calls. First thing is we want to ask them, how did you hear about us? Now, I know that you know where they came from. We've got CallRail or whatever tools we're using to track the numbers, but they don't know that we know where they called from, right? So how did you hear about us? They'll tell us it was a piece of mail, TV, billboard, whatever. Got it. And what about that advertisement caught your attention? They'll say, the as is, cash offer, post possession, whatever. I see. Okay. And what about that applies to you? Or how does that apply to you? And what we know now is what their actual pain point is, right? I need a cash close because I'm moving here, or I need it as is because my house is in terrible condition. I need a post possession because I don't know where I'm going to live after this. Whatever it is, now we know what their circumstances are and their pain, and that is how we're going to move forward. And now that we know what's important to them, we know how to proceed with the appointment when we actually meet with them in person. Now, after we ask those 3 questions, how did you hear about us? What about that ad caught your attention? And how does that apply to you? We're going to let them know, can I share with you how these calls normally go? And we're setting the rules to have this conversation. And lastly, if you're making a lot of cold calls, you're going to get a lot of callbacks. Now, if you're like me, you might be out in the field, right? People are calling you back and you have no idea where they're calling you from. So the great thing is you don't have to know, right? And what we used to do is we let them know, hey, I'm not in front of a computer right now. Can I give you a call back when I'm in front of a computer? And they'll agree to that. And what happens? When you call them again, you'll never reach them again. So we got to take advantage of the opportunity once they're in front of us. So we use a 30-second commercial. I'm not sure why we called you, but people we worked with in the past were dealing with foreclosure, angry with the city, blah, blah, blah. We give them the 30-second commercial. I don't suppose any of those apply to you. And they say no, right? We do the same exact thing to get them re-engaged. So that's how we deal with callbacks, because we don't know who we're calling because we're calling a whole lot of people. Welcome to the bonus module on bringing dead deals back to life. Now, I like to think our sales program is amazing from top to bottom. All of it cannot be missed. What we found from our clients is that bringing dead deals back to life is where they make the most money the fastest. There are 3 different parts of bringing dead deals back to life. We'll go over those scripts in a second. Now, what I want to emphasize when we're doing this is we're looking for the lost puppy. We're going to be lost. We also want to send this verbatim, word for word. So don't add to it. Don't change it. Everything is there for a reason. Also, when you send this by text message, just send it as is. When you send an email, you want to strip out all the HTML. You want it to look like you actually took the time to send this email from your computer in a distraught state. Bonus points if you can delete all the HTML and add sent from my iPhone. But when you're calling with the voicemail, add maximum sad puppy effect here. So the first message we send is the where did you go message. And it's going to sound like, John, I called you today per your request. I understand you're busy and I don't want to keep bothering you. We have 2 other homeowners call us today, ready to move forward. I can only commit to buying 2 more houses this month. I prefer to commit to you, but I can't without knowing where we stand. If you were me, what would you do? That's it, right? That's the whole voicemail. Don't leave me a message, don't call me back, whatever. That's the whole voicemail. So you send that message, and after a day, you hear nothing back. Now it's time to fall on your sword. What does that sound like? I finally realized why there's been no response. I've upset you. It's my fault. I take full responsibility, and I don't know what to do to make it right. Click. That's the full voicemail. Again, don't add anything to it. Send it as a text message, send it as an email. I want you to understand when you do this, you're going to hear things you may not want to hear because life happens. You remember in an earlier module, I encourage you to apply this in low-stakes situations. So I sent this as an email to somebody that I was trying to get on my podcast. And what did I get? Steve, I'm so sorry I haven't gotten back to you. I'm actually at hospice right now with my mom. Ugh. Felt pretty terrible about that, right? So you're going to do this, and you're going to have a higher response. Just be prepared to hear things you thought you might not have heard because life actually happens. And the last one is one that I don't know how much longer it's going to be any good, but it's worked really well for us. Should I close the file? And people cannot stand the idea that you're going to go into Podio and change a status from active to dead. They can't stand it, right? Because we're not actually going to close a file. This is 2021. Everything's digital now. But by closing the door, by removing that option for them, they're going to let you know, like, don't close that door yet. Don't close the file. I'm still here. So use this. Take full advantage of it. Again, I don't know how much longer it's going to be available for us as a tool because all the car service warranty guys are using it. I get this voicemail probably about once a month now, and this text message 1 or 2 a month. So use it. These are things, like I said, our clients have used this, and they have instantly brought deals back to life and gotten instant revenue by applying these 3 scripts.
Okay, so thank you for having us over. I appreciate that. I understand you've been talking to David, so we had a chance to talk a little bit, kind of go over the notes, but I always like to hear directly from the homeowner because it's kind of hard to capture all the attention in the notes. Is that okay?
Sure.
Because some of the questions might be the same.
Okay.
Okay, so before we get into all that, can I share with you how our appointments normally go?
Okay.
Okay,
Sure.
so first of all, thank you again for inviting me into your home. I really do appreciate that, especially on a Friday night. Probably have some more fun things to do. Can have a couple
I
people
never
over.
go anywhere.
No? Yeah. Our meetings, they generally go about an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. Is that still a decent amount of time for you?
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. And typically homeowners that we meet with, what they want to know is, for all intents and purposes, how the process works, how much money they're going to get, and when they're going to get their money. Am I missing anything at all?
Don't think so.
All right, perfect. And obviously I want to make sure it's a good fit for both of us, so I'm going to be asking quite a bit of questions. Some of these questions might come across as personal. Okay. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
All right. And at the end, 1 or 2 things is going to happen. Either we elect to do business together, or we don't, and either way is totally fine. If the price we talk about doesn't make sense for you, would you feel comfortable just telling me no?
Yeah, I would.
All right, good. And likewise, if we do decide, maybe this doesn't work for us, would you be okay if I told you that?
Yes.
Okay.
I would appreciate it.
All right. And if it does make sense for us to work together, what that means is we'll just take everything we talked about today and we'll just go ahead and put it in writing. Is that fair?
Yeah, as long as I don't have to sign, because I want to let my husband know I had signed.
As long as you're, say that again, as long as your husband,
I want to talk to my husband first and let him know what I'm doing.
okay, got it. Okay. And your husband's in New Mexico?
Yes.
Okay. Does he go back and forth?
Rarely.
Rarely? Okay. So, he doesn't come back here then often?
No.
Okay. But he has ownership?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's on the title.
Got it. Okay. I kind of get the feeling this is really difficult for you. Is there something that I'm missing?
No.
No? Okay. So, so if you and I are able to come to terms on something, then what would be the next step with your husband?
Well, I guess I'd tell him that I decided to sell my house.
Okay.
And he doesn't care that I sell that house, but I'm sure he's going to be a little annoyed because he went to his pension money to pay that house off for me, so I would never have to worry about a place to live.
Got
So
it.
I'm sure I would. That's how I would feel. Gosh, took all that money on my pension, and a couple months ago, and now she wants to move.
Oh,
But beyond that, he would understand if I said, I need to move.
okay. So is he aware that you're thinking about moving?
Before, when other places were calling,
Okay.
I called and told him that I was getting some offers and I might be interested if they were
Okay.
the right amount of money. I said, well, I want to know how much they're paying you. Make sure that you're getting enough.
Okay. So that's good. He cares. So those times you were getting those offers then, was that before or after he paid off your mortgage?
Some were before and some were after.
Okay. So you share with him, you're having other people calling you to potentially buy your home, and somewhere along the way he decided to pay off your home just so that you won't have to worry.
Right.
Okay. So he knows you're interested in selling. I guess if you could just help me understand.
I don't think he'd say no. I
Got
think
it.
he'd go ahead and sign the papers.
Mm-hmm.
But he might be a bit annoyed with me that I didn't tell him, oh, don't pay it off. I'm probably going to sell.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to pay it off.
Sure. Got it. Okay. So if we can agree on everything, then you just have to let him know.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, again, just hypothetically, if we did agree, would the next steps then be for you to just call him tomorrow, call him tonight? What does that look like?
Well, if we agreed tonight, I guess I'd call him tomorrow. I guess he goes to bed like 7 o'clock.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
Boy, what an old fart. He's 4 years younger than me.
Yeah.
But everybody has their own habits. So.
Sure. Okay, so then if we agree, then basically you would call him tomorrow, and then after that we would come back and sign everything.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess, if you have this house paid off, why would you consider selling?
Well, I can't stand my front yard, not being presentable. I mean, I'm annoyed that I don't have the gravel's gone. I asked him several years ago, while I'm still working, let's get some more gravel in the yard. He wouldn't do it. So the middle yard doesn't have much gravel, and I don't think it looks nice. But I like to keep all the plants up, and I weed and all this stuff. I tried to trim the bougainvilleas and stuff. And, well, it's getting harder and harder to do.
Sure.
1 day of work and then 3 days recuperating.
So when you go and do the landscaping, it takes you a whole day, and it takes you another 3 days to recover.
Yeah, and then I still have to do the backyard and 2 side yards.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're talking. It just goes round and round and round. There's never a break. In the summer, it really gets to me.
Oh, I bet. I mean, fortunately, it's cooling down now.
Yeah. And I'm whining it's too cold. So
Yeah. Oh, so either way,
Yeah.
it's unpleasant.
I need to live in Hawaii.
What's that?
I need to live in Hawaii.
Well, would be nice. What, you don't have anyone nearby to help you with the landscaping?
No.
Nobody? I mean, I know in my neighborhood, there's always landscapers, like, putting their business cards in the door.
Yeah.
You get those?
Yes, I do. And then if I hired a landscaper, for one thing, they'd have to speak English because I would be out there telling them exactly how to do it.
It's got to be done the right way.
Yeah, and then it probably wouldn't come back. So we go for a lot of landscapers. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so then, I mean, have you had any scenarios where you were working and it was just too much?
Oh, yeah. I have spinal cord damage, and it affects the nerves going to my legs. So I have to take medication.
Oh, wow.
Especially, like now, I'm having a problem getting medication, so it's harder to walk and feel very uncomfortable. So, yeah, so doing that stuff is more difficult than if I was normal.
Okay. How long ago did you have your spinal cord issue?
Well, I got in an auto accident and the car flipped over and I was hanging by the
Wow.
And I kept waiting for someone to come so I had to, catch my fall, but nobody came. So I thought maybe, but it's stupid because I know I don't have any upper body strength. Yeah, so when I came down on my head, bent my neck the wrong way. And for 4 years, I kept getting worse and worse. And I kept going to doctors and telling them, problem with my legs. And most of them told me, well, you just have arthritis. Go home and deal with it like everybody else does. And I knew there was something really wrong.
Well, something changed.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't even step over the garden hose. I was in so bad shape. And then they did MRIs and everything but my neck. And finally, I was scheduled to have an MRI of my real low back. And I went to see the doctor the day before, and I told my neck feels weird, and my hands and arms are tingly and numb. So I had them do a neck one too. And it showed crystal clear disc.
Got it.
Had bent over and was pressing into my spinal cord about a quarter of an inch.
Okay. Well, have you gotten it fixed?
No, can't do anything.
Can't fix it. So it's just medication now.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was 4 years ago?
That was in 2000, I think, 2006.
2006. So you've been struggling with this for a long, long time.
Yeah.
This is going to be a really personal question, but how come your husband's not here to help you with it?
He said he had 10 years of taking care of me, which is a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there are too many surgeries all in 1 year. One was major, had to have heart surgery. But I had to stay in bed for a week, and then I was up and doing the same thing everybody else was. Same thing with my neck. I walked out that same day. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there were a few other surgeries that he didn't have to take care of me. But he, in his mind, thinks that, oh God. Okay, so.
And he's younger than you.
Yeah. It's probably the problem. I shouldn't marry younger men.
How long ago did he move out?
When was it? It's been at least 5 or 6 years.
5 or 6
ago.
years.
Yeah.
Got it. And so, in a perfect world, where would you live?
Well, I guess in Tucson. I like Tucson a lot.
Okay, what do you like about Tucson?
It's smaller. You can see the foothills all around you.
Yeah.
I guess I got spoiled because we had a really nice house out towards Sabina Canyon.
You did?
Yeah,
Okay, so you were in Tucson, you came here.
yeah.
How long ago was that?
I think we were there about 6 or 7 years. So I think we moved up here in the late 80s.
Okay. So you were ready to go back.
Yeah, because it's a little cooler in the summer. I know it's a little cooler in the winter, but I think I could deal with that, just stay in the house.
And then you would look for a home with less landscaping?
Well, I was thinking of a mobile because I thought it would be cheaper. But the one I like that I saw on the internet is $175,000. So, and then by the time I bought the property, but the guy said it would be anywhere from 20 to 40,000. I have to have somebody grade it for the mobile, and then if it doesn't have utilities, I'd have to pay for all that to be put in. He said you could be easily looking at $300,000. Oh boy, but that dream kind of went out the window.
Yeah. How come that's out the window?
Well, if you guys only gave me $320, that would leave me with $20,000. And I was hoping to sell the house, get the mobile, and still have $100,000 that I could invest. When I got to the point when I couldn't take care of myself, I could go into assisted living. That's not what happened, but just a mere $20,000 left. So.
Got it. And so there's a specific mobile home that you like?
Yeah, but I haven't looked all that much.
But this is a mobile home in a particular location, or you like a particular mobile home that you have to still find land for?
I like the mobile home and I still have to find land.
Okay. So that's just step one.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so you're talking like a brand new mobile home.
I would like a brand new mobile home.
Okay. And so if you couldn't get a brand new mobile home, it wouldn't make sense to move.
Unless there is one that was a couple years old, then I might be willing to look. But I don't even think I like one that's 10 years old. It's just too old.
Okay. So we were able to help you find one that wasn't too old, that was already on land and utilities. That may be a prospect that would work for you.
That might work for me.
Okay.
And I would be willing to stay in the area. Somebody told me there was lots up towards Lake Pleasant. And I know every time we went past there, I tell my husband, we should buy some property up here. It's so beautiful. They still have desert the whole thing.
This price has gone up a lot, though. Yeah.
True. See.
Okay, so I guess so. The biggest thing is finding a mobile home that you could live in with minimal landscaping. What are I mean, ideally, what would the mobile home have?
Be double wide, 3 bedrooms. I could do 2. It's the one, not the master bedroom, but the spare bedroom if it was large.
Mm-hmm.
Because you see all this crap here. That's a third of my quilting fabric.
Got it.
So you can see why I need either 2 or 3 or 1 big bedroom.
And you plan to continue your quilting business?
I'm hoping to, if my hands don't shake too much.
Sure. Okay, so you want at least 2 bedrooms if the second bedroom is larger, or 3 bedrooms. Okay, and then was there a certain? I mean, you're looking at be out there maybe by summertime. What was the time frame here?
Well, I'm sure if you paid me, you want me out here as soon as you can because it's the price. You're going to have to do something before the prices get much lower, right?
Yeah, I mean that's our biggest concern.
Yeah, and I understand that.
Yeah. So, all right, and I understand that there were some other people that came out and made you some offers.
There have been. I talked to people on the phone, and they made some offers. One offered $337 about a month ago. Maybe I should have taken them up on it.
Probably should have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess the biggest thing is moving to Tucson with cooler weather. The house right now is too big. Or at the house, the landscaping has come too much, and you really like it to be a particular way. So it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then I guess, do you feel like frustration with the way things are going with the home? I mean, you could just, stay here and just let the landscaping be.
I know. That's what my husband said. This could be out here, let one person come in here who's a real dynamo and put it in the tub. This is their collections. They need to be kept together. I know how I want it. Somebody else is going to go in there and throw shit around. I'll never find the collections again. And I wouldn't.
The collection, what kind of collections are we talking about?
Well, if you go on the internet, a certain fabric designer with Moda, I don't know if you've ever heard of them, they'll do a whole collection and it's only out for a couple of months. So if you like it, you better buy everything for the pattern you're going to use, or it's going to be gone and you won't find it.
Sold out.
Yeah, that's why there's all this fabric.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, when I was growing up, my grandma had a fabric business, and I had to go help her sew it.
Cool.
Well, I was awful. I was terrible, but she sold it, so I mean, I hope she got decent money for it. But imagine a 6-year-old trying to. It was not very good.
Yeah, and a boy too.
Yeah. The threading the needle was the absolute worst.
Yeah. That's my problem now. I have tremors in the thumb, so it's like,
yeah. Okay, so as far as the collections, then what would you need to do to be able to identify the collection?
Well, all I need to do is throw it in the bin and put tape on top and write what the collection is. People would listen to me. But one of my son's friends comes over occasionally and helps me.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it is nice of her, but I've been paying her too.
Got it.
And when I tell her what I want, she doesn't necessarily do it that way. That's why my cat is dead. She wouldn't listen to me.
What?
So, well, I had roof rats. So she was helping me set bait and stuff. And she got on the internet and said you could take those little hot dog things, the Vienna sausage, put it in antifreeze, soak it in antifreeze for a day or two. Then you could take it and lay it out as bait, and it kills the rats. So I told her, fine, throw it up in the vent and throw it where you can get it, but do not put it on the roof. I don't want them rolling off and Lily and the cat getting hold of them. And I forgot that he would jump on the roof all the time. But the point is, I told her not to do it, and she did. And he got up on the roof, found some, ate them, killed them.
Wow, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. He's a cool cat.
So then, I guess if we were able to have someone come in and help you identify the collections, would that be helpful?
It would if beforehand I got this paperwork somebody told I didn't used to be like this. I blame it on the medication. I used to be very organized. I paid all the bills. And then I brought a few boxes into the house. Never really bothered. I mean, there wasn't very many, but pissed them off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I believe you. I mean, if you got, I mean, the fact that you care so much about your yard would tell me that you are very particular and we like an organized and neat place.
Yeah.
So this is probably killing you.
Yeah. I really do think it's the medications that turned me into an idiot.
Well, I wouldn't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
So someone can help you clean up with the papers, clean that up, and then we could identify the fabrics and label it. What would you do with that? You would sell
Throw
it?
it in the bin? Nope.
Nope.
I mean, I'm sure I'm going to die before I get through all this fabric, but I'm hoping I can do it.
Okay, so then you would take the fabric, we would label it clearly so that you could take it to Tucson with you. So you got it in the right place and organized and everything else.
Yeah. And I could stack it in the spare bedroom. There wouldn't be any room to walk, but yeah.
If we can do that, if we can help you organize it so that you have something that obviously you care about, it's important to you, how would that make you feel?
Well, I feel overwhelmed. Somebody comes to help me.
You feel overwhelmed when someone comes to help you?
Yeah, I just get really anxious.
Sure.
I know I'm sounding like those old ladies who are hoarders. I'm not a hoarder. I'm not a hoarder. Yeah, but yeah.
But afterwards, I know it's going to be anxious and difficult initially, overwhelming. But once it's done, how would you feel?
I go, wow, great. Especially if we got it back in the studio where it belongs. There's that building over there. You can't see it, it's too dark. There's a 500 square foot building out there that I use as a studio. And so that's what my husband... Everybody hassled me about my fabric being out there. And says, well, it's my studio. So yeah, it's going to be out there. It takes hates all this room, boxes all over the place. You hardly have room to move. So, it's my studio.
Right.
And then my son came to live with me after that. He started the same thing in on me and his girlfriend. And I got kind of hysterical, crying. I went out and took all the boxes and just threw them.
Threw them where?
All around the studio. So I still haven't gotten it picked up because the stuff that landed in the corner, well, I'm afraid to go get it because I'm terrified of spiders.
Oh.
And I keep thinking I have to have somebody come in and spray. But if I tell them, don't spray the fabric, spray diethyl, spray on it. Like, oh, lady, don't do it. They'll be annoyed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like you got a lot going on, overwhelming. Something that, well, I guess, I mean, how...
If I was younger, it'd been picked up and done in a week. But
Yeah.
I can't do all that.
So,
Yeah, you're looking at you. Yeah, 6 months. I don't think so.
well, I mean, I'm totally used to this. You know, we've been buying houses for a long time, so this is actually not unusual. It's not.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. So, as I understand it, you know, you got between the landscaping and the fabrics, and then over here in the backyard, and then wanting to come down to Tucson, you know, causing you to feel mostly relief being back surrounded by the foothills, but also overwhelmed with everything that's going on.
Yeah, and I got robbed last week, and I got all my money.
Robbed?
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
Well, I went out to go pick up some takeout, and they closed at 7. So I was in a hurry. I locked the door, went out, and my keyless didn't work. So I came back to the house, got the spare key, went out, tried it wouldn't work. So then I brought my purse back in the house. Can't remember what the hell I was doing, but I came back in the house. Well, then, ready to go. Went out, unlocked. It finally dawned on me, hey, dummy, just unlock it manually. So I did, and I get in the car, go, where's my purse? Oh, it's in the house. I run back in out, get my purse. I think I just ran out, shut the door. I didn't put lock on the gate. So I think it was the neighbor across the street. She's Asian, but I don't know if she's like a Vietnam War bride or something. She's as old as me. So our son is in his late 20s or 30s. And he's got a bedroom that looks right over here. I mean, it's only gone 20 minutes. So it had to be somebody who saw me leave. I mean, it has to be.
Right.
Yeah. Him. He saw me leave. Trucked over here. Gates open for him. Door open for him. And I had the money on this thing. And I put a paper over it because somebody could come look at the house. So I put a paper over it. So I'm sure he put the paper over it, saw the money, and woo-hoo. Yeah.
So I bet that probably was a little discomforting.
Oh, it was upsetting.
Yeah.
It took about 3 years to save $8,000.
$8,000?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna do tires on a Corvette, have the hoses, put new hoses on, get buffed out, and drive it. Before I got too old to drive it.
So we can help you get down to Tucson, help you organize your fabrics,
never have to worry about, your landscaping, and then definitely moving away from this neighbor. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is that to you?
I guess about a 6. I mean, I can deal with that little bastard.
Yeah.
I found another $1,000 that he didn't get a hold of. And I took it out to the gate. I fanned the $100 bills out and then I flipped them off.
So 6. So it doesn't sound like it's terribly urgent. If you lived here for another year or 2, then that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a realist,
What do you mean?
Well, you do what you can.
Right.
And you live what you can't, so what the hell.
Okay, so then I guess going down to Tucson then isn't really a priority right now.
If I had the mobile right and a decent piece of land, it would feel good, because one of the things I'm hoping is that I'm not so dependent on Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he paid for everything. I don't have to pay for it. He
Yeah.
gives me a monthly allotment. And,
What kind of allotment?
well, I think it comes to about $750 a month,
$750 a month.
which I get groceries with and
Sure.
allowance and gas money.
Yeah. So I guess I'm kind of confused, because I thought you wanted to go down to Tucson right away, but it sounds like when you say you're a realist, have you given up hope on going down there? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, after I talked to that guy the other day,
Oh.
it really sounded like, a pipe dream.
Got it. So really that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
But if we could help you find one, if we could help you find a double wide in Tucson, with the money you have from this, I guess would that change the situation here?
It would, but, like he told me, well, I can get you in a lot cheaper mobile. I mean, I only have to pay around $5,000. And he said that his vinyl walls and stuff, but I go, please don't, no. Can't do that. Yeah.
You can't do vinyl.
No, I like my house. It's a nice house.
It
In
is.
a nice neighborhood. And so if I can't get the same equivalent in a mobile on decent property, I would be insane to sell.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't want my lifestyle to go down.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to stay the same.
Sure. Okay, so really we're talking about the conditioned manufactured home.
Yeah.
Okay, but if we can find a decent one, then it would make sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the reason this was so expensive is that whole kitchen, even island, was really quality cabinetry. It was called a furniture island.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you walk to the virtual tour, when you walk in, because I hate walking in and seeing the kitchen, but I guess that's all the big deal now. I don't know.
That's the way it is today.
Kitchen, that's not a good thing. I like to do dishes.
Okay, so but if we let's pretend we found you a manufactured home tomorrow, then what would be the next step
That I like.
that you liked? So let's just pretend we were able to find you one.
See, now we have to find a property.
Then what?
Property. I don't mind being just on a big lot. I mean, life, you don't get what you want in life, so You know, but the problem is, you know, like I told him, I need a double carport, a large storage shed attached to it. I need cement driveway up to it. I'd like a patio out in the back, covered. And, and I told him I need a wall around the entire.
Who were you telling this to?
The guy at the trailer place, a mobile place.
Got it.
I said, because I have pets, I can't have them running out. You know, I have to have some. And I said, I'm not a chain link girl, you know?
Yeah.
No way.
Okay.
So he said, with all that you want, and the property, and now the mobile, and especially if it's a desert property that's out in the outskirts, so probably doesn't have any utilities, so you're going to have to pay to have those brought in so we can connect them. He said, you're looking close to $300,000.
Sure. Let's just hypothetically say we found something that worked for you. I'm not saying that we could, but if we hypothetically found something for like maybe $200,000, right? And I'm not promising that we could. I'm just speculating here. If we did, how much more on top of that would you need for you?
Well, if I could even take 75 of that and properly invest it so it's growing for a few years, then 25,000 left plus 20,000, that's 50,000. That would allow me to pay my charge cards off.
Oh, you have charge cards?
Oh, yeah, do I have charge cards? I had one paid off, and then my son came back to live with me, and then it started adding up.
Okay. How much is on the charge card?
I think it's 10,000 on the one and 18,000 on the other. So.
All from your son?
No.
Oh.
Well, a lot of it is. The other one I had to pay $6,000 to the bond company, so that was a big chunk out of there. So, yeah.
Bond company?
Yeah, well, he was in jail.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And I put the house up, put the collateral, and bonded him out.
Yeah.
And then he got in an auto accident. And so they arrested him, put him back in jail. So thankfully they had taken out insurance on him because they thought he was a flight risk. I knew he wasn't a flight risk. So that paid for the house, the lien on the house. So, but they sent me a bill for $6,000.
Got it.
And Lynn had already shelled out $10,000 non-refundable to bail him out. So I wasn't going to call it. I need another $6,000.
Yeah. So 10,000 plus 18,000,
Yeah,
28,000.
oh, yeah.
And you said the 75,000 was for what? To grow what? You said on top of $200,000, you would need 75,000 to.
Oh, to invest.
To what?
To invest.
To invest.
Yeah.
Oh, what would you invest in?
I don't know. I'm not very good at that. So.
Okay.
But.
So 75 to invest, and then there was 25 for what?
That I still have to pay off my bills.
Pay off the credit cards.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, I mean, if we were in a situation where we could, for sure cover the credit card bills, you need 75,000 to invest.
Well, when I told Lynn that if I stay here, he says, well, I said, well, what is the roof, I said, it's been a good roof, but it won't last forever. I said, so what happens if we have to do the roof? What happens if we have to do the irrigation? What happens if the tree roots go into the toilets and they have to dig out into the house? We're talking really big money here. He said, well, we'll just get a reversible mortgage and we can pay for it with the equity. I said, yeah, the equity that I was going to use when I got old and nobody wanted to take care of me.
Yeah.
I said, you're making me nervous. Yeah, so, and they seem like a good idea to him, but doesn't to me.
Sure.
Yeah, so.
So, I mean, if we were able to, help you with the mobile home, pay off your cards, that wouldn't make sense for you.
As long as I had, enough money, things crop up, unexpected crap. And I was able to get the stuff I need, the carport and the storage shed. Yeah, I think I'd be okay with that. I should have got more serious when, people were throwing around 350 and 360.
Yeah, I know. I mean, this surprised all of us. None of us were prepared for the way the market was going to turn.
That was weird.
Yeah, it was.
I was hoping it'd be like California and never go back down.
Yeah, you're not alone. I have a lot of friends that wish it were the same as well. So, I mean, really, ultimate what it sounds like is if we can help you find a mobile home and we can pay off your credit card debt, that would be enough for you to move on.
I have to be honest with you. I did sign a contract with somebody, and it scared the holy crap out of me. I was in such anxiety over having signed a contract. I'm like, oh my God, this is real. Oh my God, what did they do? Oh, I'm running around like a chicken. My head's gone off. I was so freaked out. And then it didn't get better because after they left, I never heard from them again.
When was this?
I think last year.
Last year?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, have you tried calling them?
No, because I went and got an attorney, so I had to pay for the attorney. And so they, told him, you have her sign a contract. She's not selling that house. You didn't get her husband to sign.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, she told you when you're talking to her that she had a stroke the month before, and there's a statute that you could not hold the elder responsible for something they do within a month that they had a stroke.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the kid who came out tried to sell him that. I told him my husband was dead. I didn't tell him that.
Yeah. So they were just being silly.
Yeah, so they stalled
Mm-hmm.
until the market started to go down.
Yeah.
And then they rescinded the contract.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
So, I guess what we're probably going to have to do is figure out, what we can find a mobile home for. But I guess, I'll have to go back and do some research. But if we could find a mobile home somewhere between $200,000, $250,000, that got you the storage, that got you the 2-bedroom, that got you the carport in Tucson, we can find something along those lines. Again, $200,000, $250,000, plus pay off your credit card debt. At that point, that would make sense for you.
Yeah. So because I've never been so broke. I suppose I could call my husband and he'd send me some more money. I don't like doing that.
Yeah.
You know?
So then, would it make sense for you to call him tomorrow and then see if that makes sense, or should I call him tomorrow? What would be the best approach here?
I would have to call him. He doesn't like to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
He gets real nasty.
Okay. So how about we do this? You call in tomorrow, share with him what we discussed. We'll go back and see what we can find as far as manufactured homes, double wide, at least 2-bedroom, not vinyl, right? 10 years or newer, storage.
I'd say
carport.
7 years or newer.
7 years or newer.
Yeah. I know I'm really narrow in the field, but
Well, we're here to solve problems. So we can make this work. We'll make it work. If we can't make it work, we'll let you know.
okay.
Right?
Okay.
So you'll talk to Lynn. You'll call Lynn. Let us know whether that works, and then we'll go back and see if we can make it work. Is that fair?
Okay. Sounds
All right.
right up.
So David will give you a call tomorrow.
Okay.
What time do you think you'll call Lynn?
Well, try for mid-mornings.
Mid-morning? Okay, so then David will give you a call around noon tomorrow. That works for you?
Yeah, that works.
So he'll give you a call at noon tomorrow, and that works for Lynn. Then we'll get to work, and we can make this work. Then we can help you out and help you with all this as well.
Okay.
Is that a deal?
Yeah.
All right. So we'll follow back up with you tomorrow.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Well, I appreciate you're willing to do all that.
Well, I mean, our purpose is to help people, you know. We want to help others out. And again, haven't thought about helping my grandma. I want to say in probably over 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it brings back memories. Not great memories. Just memories.
You're trying to deal with the trauma here.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Perfect. So we'll connect tomorrow, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank
All right.
you.
We'll talk tomorrow.
Okay.
You just watched me take a seller from hello to signed, the whole thing unedited. Now imagine that running on every lead you get, in seconds, day or night, whether you pick up or not. Real quick, then we'll get right back to it. We built objection-proof AI to do 3 things. 1, call every new lead back in seconds, 24/7, handle the objections, and book the appointment. 2, grade and coach every call your team makes so your close rate keeps climbing. And 3, help you scale your wholesale operation without adding headcount, so you never miss a lead or lose a deal to slow follow-up again. If you want that for your business, go to the link in the description and book a call with our team. We guarantee you'll get at least 10 to 50 signed contracts in the next 90 days. Now back to it.
In this module, we're going to talk about the disc profile. If you remember earlier, we talked about the platinum rule: treat other people how they want to be treated. And in order to do that effectively, we need to understand how people behave. So we're going to go over disc and understand people's behaviors as you can describe them. So this is all created by William Larson at Harvard University. I want to be very clear. This is a profile test, not an aptitude test. It does not measure IQ, grit, resourcefulness, or anything like that. Additionally, there's no right or wrong, good or bad. It's just who they are, and based on who they are, they will behave a certain way. It's a universal language of observable human behavior and emotions. There are 4 distinct profiles when we're talking about the DISC. We got the dominance, this is the D, describes how you handle problems and challenges. You got the influence, the I factor, how you handle people and influence other people. You got the steadiness factor, the S, how you handle change and pace yourself. And finally, the conscientiousness, the C factor, and this is how you handle rules and procedures set by others. So again, it's a personal assessment. It's used by over 1 million people per year. It's a non-judgmental tool. Again, it provides a common language that we can use to better understand ourselves and others through behaviors. Here are a few ways that this can help you. First, you become more knowledgeable about yourself. You'll figure out how you respond to conflict, what motivates you, what causes you stress, and how you solve problems. Also, by understanding this, you can understand your team better, right? How other people behave, and now you can adjust your behavior to coordinate with their behavior. And more importantly, while you're here, is you're gonna get better at sales, because if you can understand how the other person behaves, you can modify your behavior to connect with them. And finally, as you become more knowledgeable about yourself, you will become a better leader. Let's begin with the Ds, the dominant profiles. You can see a D because they have quick reaction, a maximum effort to control, a minimal interest for cost in relationships. They're not really concerned how other people are going to react to this. They're going to operate in a current time frame, what's happening at the here and now. They're motivated by direct action. And finally, there's a tendency to avoid involvement. We don't need other people here. We can handle this ourselves. And so how Ds generally see themselves: driven, resolute, ambitious, decisive, competitive, independent, prompt, determined, time-conscious, persuasive, strong-willed, and results-oriented. All in all, it sounds pretty good. The problem is that if you're not a D, if you're an I, S, or C, here's how an I, S, and C generally see a D profile: belligerent, arrogant, egotistical, unyielding, impatient, aggressive, controlling, dictatorial, and tyrannical, right? Not really good, feel-good adjectives to describe another human being. What about their body language? How can you tell you're dealing with a D? They're gonna keep their distance from others. They're gonna have very powerful handshakes. So you're gonna feel a very strong grip, and they might even rotate their wrist to really let you know that they're in charge. And while they're standing further away, they're gonna lean forward aggressively. They're gonna use very direct eye contact, and their gestures can be a little controlling, kind of like an air traffic controller directing. That's how you're gonna see a D profile gesture when they're communicating. They're gonna talk fast, usually kind of loud. They're gonna love competitions, sports, games. You're gonna see awards of pictures or pictures of them with other people. They're really motivated by challenges. That's what really gets a D out of bed. They're gonna be very impatient, they can be demanding, and their biggest fear is being taken advantage of. Now, how can someone with a dominant profile have a fear of being taken advantage of? Well, their whole lives, they've moved very fast. Details is not something that's really important to them. And so they'll overlook some details while they're making important decisions, and they've been taken advantage of in the past, and that's why they have that fear. So I was confused by this initially, but as I learn more about myself, I have learned that I sometimes have a dominant profile, and looking back, I've made some really foolish, expensive mistakes because I was moving too fast. What are the strengths of a high D person? First, they've got an ego. Now, we typically look at ego as a negative connotation, right? We look down a little bit on people with an ego, but in this context, someone with an ego is someone that can face adversity and keep moving forward. Someone with a D personality has faced rejection, has faced failure, and they keep getting up. So in this context here, an ego is a good quality. They're gonna be problem solvers, right? They're motivated by challenge. They love solving problems. They enjoy challenging assignments, and they're gonna drive for results. Results are ultimately all that matters. Feelings don't matter. They just want results. They're positive. They like confrontation. They enjoy power and authority, and they're motivated by direct answers. Do not beat around the bush with a D personality. However, they do have their limitations. They may overstep authority, right? They're gonna seek forgiveness, not permission. They may use fear as a motivator. They can be very poor listeners, impatient delegators. I didn't want this done now. I wanted this done yesterday. They're gonna lack tact and diplomacy, right? They're not gonna operate in a way to make sure you feel good about it. They're just gonna move forward very quickly. They dislike routine work. Do not stick them in a cube. They will become restless, and they may over-delegate and under-instruct. If you read the book Rocket Fuel, this is your typical visionary. All the ideas without any of the details on how to get it done. Famous Ds. You got Donald Trump. Love him or hate him, you're gonna see a lot of those negative limitations. Describes him pretty well. You also got Bobby Knight. right? We've all seen videos of him throwing a chair across the basketball court. There's also stories of him, choking students in practice. Guy's got some pretty strong feelings. And we got Steve Jobs. Now, everyone loves Steve Jobs. They love Apple, but the guy was a tyrant, right? He would regularly berate his employees and tell them how awful whatever it was that they were delivering, how awful that product was and why they wasted his time, right? So what did he do? He drove for results, and it's the reason why Apple is one of the most valuable companies in the world. Some industries they're going to be in. They're going to be business owners. They're going to be general managers. They're going to be salespeople. These are people that generally drive for results. When you're communicating with a high D, you want to be very clear, specific, and to the point. Stick to business, right? Stick to the matter at hand. Don't try to beat around the bush. Get to it. You want to come prepared with all requirements, objects, support material, and a well-organized package. Present your facts logically and plan your presentation efficiently. Don't take too long, right? A longer presentation will only frustrate a D. Provide alternative choices. Let them make the decisions, right? If they feel like they're in control, they're going to be happier in working with you. Provide facts and figures about probability of success, effectiveness of options. If you disagree with a high D, take issues with the facts. That's all that matters. If you bring your feelings into this, they're going to walk all over you. And finally, provide a win-win opportunity when you're communicating with a D. The next profile is the inspiring profile, also referred to as influential. And you're going to see that they're going to be described by a rapid reaction. They're going to move very fast. Maximum effort to involve other people, because if there's not other people involved, what's the point of doing this? Minimal interest in routine, just like the Ds. Don't stick them in a cubicle. Having a routine will only drive them crazy. They always operate in a future time frame. So while the Ds are operating on what's in front of them, the Is are always operating in the future, which is sometimes why they appear to be daydreaming and not physically present. They also have an impulsive action. So if you go to these stores that have these really long checkout lines, the reason why is because the Is are the ones that are buying everything in the checkout lines. And there's a tendency to reject isolation. They don't want to do anything by themselves. And so if you were to ask an I how they would describe themselves, you're going to hear words like enthusiastic, charming, outgoing, inspiring, optimistic, flexible, open, creative, spontaneous, convincing, easygoing, and communicative. Right? All sounds great. However, if you're not an I and you happen to be a D, S, or a C, here's how you see an I. Selfish, superficial, overly self-confident, talks too much, bad listeners, distracted, and careless. Not so positive. So how can you tell an I based off their body language? They're gonna be very tactile. They're gonna be touching your elbow, your forearm, your shoulder. Big hugs, right? If a homeowner is trying to hug you in the first 30 seconds of an appointment, you got a person that's an I profile. Very relaxed, very friendly, friendly eye contact, expressive gestures. So whereas the Ds are kind of demonstrative, the Is are just gonna have very big gestures, right? They're gonna be in this range, and they may often come too close, right? And so the I behavior, they can be amusing, creative. They'll elevate the mood regardless of who they're with. They could be at an accounting conference and they'll make it entertaining. Given unlimited space, so they will consume all the oxygen in the room. Nobody else will be able to get into the conversation. I've been in conversations where there's 8 or 9 people and one person is doing 80 to 90% of the talking. That's an I profile. And their stories may not reflect reality, right? So I caught a fish this big, might have actually been this big. And when you're interacting with an I, they're gonna talk enthusiastically, a lot of chit chat at first. They like people activities. You're gonna see memorabilia of friends, customers, suppliers, right? People. They're motivated by social recognition. And so Jerry Seinfeld did a skit a while ago about how funny it is to go into a real estate office because you're gonna see awards and plaques almost in every room, like they were giving out participation trophies. And the truth is, that's kind of how it is in a real estate office because you're filled with Ds and Is. And so they may be somewhat disorganized. In some ways, it look like maybe a hurricane just hit their desk. And their biggest fear is personal rejection, not being liked. Not being liked is the worst possible thing you can do to an I. And so some of their strengths, they're very optimistic. They're good at persuading people. They can see the big dream, right? They're dreamers, and they can communicate it. They're people-oriented, team-oriented, and they're motivated by praise and strokes. So if you're familiar with the 5 love languages, words of affirmations are really good around I profiles. However, their limitations are they may act impulsively, unrealistic in appraising people, so they're great for most roles or in a lot of roles, but not necessarily for recruiting because they're gonna see the best version of that person, and attentive to detail. Details are like fine print, really irrelevant. Situational listeners, they truly will hear what they want to hear. And it's really important. I've actually had this happen to me as a business owner in negotiating with an I. Whatever you negotiate, be sure to put that in writing because they will completely forget what they committed to, right? They got really bad case of happy ears. They can be flaky. This is your friend that will disappear on you 2 days before that trip to Europe, or you scheduled a lunch with them and oh, I forgot, that was today. That's an I profile. So very disorganized. They may overpromise, right? So you guys hear overpromise and underdeliver as a sales industry. It's these I's that are giving us a bad name because they're overly optimistic in what they believe they can accomplish in a period of time. On time, start time, completely optional, right? Just like the speed limit for most of us. For them, we say, hey, we're gonna start at 12. They'll show up at 12:30 or 2:30, and for them, it's no big deal. And they'll forget to close because they're having such a great time. Who are some famous I's? Robin Williams, Kevin Hart, Oprah Winfrey, Ellen DeGeneres. What kind of industries will they be in? Servers, bartenders, realtors, sales in general, right? They love people. Any job where they get to be around people, they'll enjoy it. So if you're communicating with a high I, be sure you allow time for relating and socializing. Talk about people and their goals. Focus on the people and action items. But again, put details in writing because if you don't, it will come back to bite you. Ask for their opinion. Provide ideas for implementing action. Use enough time to be stimulating, fun, and fast moving. This is the reason why realtors love happy hours. Provide testimonials from people they see as important or prominent. You can see a theme here, right? People. They want to see people involved in working with them. The next profile is a stable profile. You're gonna see a very calm reaction. Doesn't matter if the world is falling apart, they're gonna be calm. Maximum effort for connection. They wanna create a deep connection. So I's are gonna have a lot of friends. S's are gonna have some very deep friendships. Very minimal interest in change. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Even if it is broke, don't fix it. They'll operate in the current time frame. So D's are present time frame, I's are in the future, S's are also in the present time frame. They're very supportive in their action and a tendency to avoid conflict. They don't want to upset other people. So how do S's see themselves? Friendly, calm, reliable, considerate, pleasant, patient, predictable, stable, team player, discreet, thoughtful, and a good listener. And those are pretty great ways to describe oneself. Well, what if you're a D, I, or C? How would you see an S? Well, generally, they also like the S's. Pleasant, friendly, caring. Sometimes says yes when they really mean no, and they could be part of the silent resistance. They also have a reputation of talking behind other people's backs, but I want to put this in context here, right? They're afraid of conflict, and so they won't tell the person that they have a conflict with what's wrong, so they'll tell a friend, and you know how it works. You tell one person, everybody knows, but that's the reason why S's have a reputation of talking behind other people's backs. They're afraid of change. Why are we changing things? They can be stubborn, unconcerned, and indifferent. So if you're observing an S as far as body language, they may be relaxed, they may come close. They're methodical in their movements. They have a tendency to lean backwards. So whereas D's are distant and leaning forward, S's are closer, but leaning backwards. They have a friendly eye contact and they prefer small scale gestures. So D's are demonstrative, I's are out here, S's are gonna be right here. When you're interacting with an S, they're gonna be very easy to hang out because they pleasantly and genuinely care for others. I mean, why would you not wanna hang out with someone like that? They can be wishy-washy and unclear. You don't know where they stand sometimes, and their indecision can kill energy in other people. When they're talking, they're methodical, logical, soft voice. They'll enjoy family activities or small groups. You're gonna see pictures of their family. If you're walking to a house and you see pictures of their family all along the hallway, as low as your ankle or all the way up the stairwell, you're dealing with an S. They're motivated by team projects and helping others. Their limitations, they may resist change, and they can be a little possessive of ideas. And finally, their biggest fears are either taking risks or confronting. Some of the strengths of a high S person, they're gonna be very loyal to those they identify with, right? These are your ride or die people. They're gonna be great listeners. They can be very patient, very empathetic. They love to have a team environment, and long service is deemed important. If you're dealing with an S and you're reviewing their resume, you're gonna see that they've been in one place for very long periods of time. Likewise, if you're gonna work for an S, they're gonna see on your resume, if you're job skipping a lot, they won't even give you the time of day. And they will overservice, whereas the I's will overpromise and underdeliver. Your S's are gonna overservice. So if you have a role where you're dealing with people a lot, customers, clients, and so on, you want your S's and talking to them. They're gonna be very oriented towards family activities, and they're motivated towards traditional activities. Some of the limitations of an S, they're gonna get in a rut. They like to maintain the status quo. They're gonna resist change. I've said this over and over again. They're gonna hold grudges. They're gonna lack or project a sense of urgency. They may be slow to act without precedent. If they haven't seen it done this way before, they're not gonna do it this way today. They're gonna hesitate to move. Rather than delegate, they may do the work themselves. And the reason why is they don't wanna overburden anybody, right? Like for them, they're happy to pick you up at 2 o'clock in the morning, tire blown out, or you're in the drunk tank, they will come pick you up. However, they don't want to burden you, so they'd rather do it themselves. Very difficult to read, and they may take too long to close, right? They want to make sure everything's right before they ask for the order. Now, as far as being difficult to read, don't play poker with these guys. You can't see any reaction. Like I said, the world could be falling apart, and their facial expressions literally will not change. Who are some famous S's? Mr. Rogers, Mother Teresa, Gandhi. Not a very long, exhaustive list, because S's generally are plenty happy being behind the scenes. Some industries they're gonna be in: administrative, teachers, and nurses. As you can see, these are all support type roles. So if you're communicating with a high S, start with personal comments, break the ice. You gotta be very sincere in your interest. Do not fake the interest, they can tell. Patiently draw out the personal goals, listen and be responsive, present logically, softly, non-threateningly, move casually, informally, and if the situation affects them personally, look for hurt feelings. Like I said earlier, you can't read them, so you gotta be proactive in seeing if their feelings are hurt, provide personal assurances and guarantees, and finally, if a decision is required of them, allow them time to think, obviously with the exception, if you're dealing with a homeowner, no one's allowed to think about it. And finally, we got the analyticals, also referred to as conscientious or compliance. They're gonna be described with a slow reaction. They're gonna take a long time to do things, maximum effort to organize. You gotta make sure that all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, minimal interest in relationships, just like the D profile. They're gonna operate in a historical time frame. So whereas the D's and S's are today and I's in the future, C's are always looking in the past. They're gonna be very cautious in their action and a tendency to avoid involvement. There's no need to get other people involved. How do C's see themselves? Accurate, cautious, correct, detail-oriented, logical, methodical, orderly, quality-oriented, reflective, systematic, thorough, and unassuming, which is not terrible, right? These are the kind of people that you want in your organization. However, if you're not a C, D's, I's, and S's generally have the biggest challenges dealing with C's, because how do they see them? Evasive, defensive, perfectionist, reserved, fastidious, meticulous, hesitant, conservative, lacking independence, questioning, suspicious, tedious, aloof, and cold-hearted. As you can see, this list is very exhaustive when you're dealing with the C's. Sorry, C's. What about their body language? They're gonna prefer to keep a distance from others, right? They're gonna stand or sit completely still. At a conference, they can sit in the same spot 4 hours, 8 hours without moving. They're often gonna have a closed body language, their arms gonna be crossed, they're gonna have very direct eye contact, and it's kind of funny because D's and I's are gestures in this range, S's are down here. C's, they can talk to you and their hands will never move. They'll be on the table this whole time or in their pockets the entire conversation. That's how you'll know you're dealing with a C. What about a C's behavior? Well, they're gonna be very calm, level-headed, and they'll think before they speak. They will very rarely actually put their foot in their mouth. However, their critical thinking can quickly turn into suspicion, questioning everyone around them. Everyone can become suspect, and that's what happens when you're overanalyzing everything. Their behaviors, they're going to talk in a monotone with very little emotion, very precise. They love do-it-yourself projects. They love solitude. So during the COVID pandemic, the I's were bouncing off the walls because they couldn't talk to people. The C's were having the time of their lives. They didn't have to talk to anybody, and they got to do whatever they want. This is bliss. You're going to see charts, graphs, and functional things in their office. They're motivated by well-planned on-time activities in very small groups. Their limitations, though, they may be too hard on themselves and too hard on other people, and their biggest fear is criticism of their work. So you can make fun of their outfit, you can make fun of their cars, their hair, whatever, but if you're gonna criticize their work, boy, you better be prepared to justify whatever it is you're about to tell them. The biggest strengths of a C, critical thinking, right? We've been saying this over and over again. High standards for themselves and their subordinates. Very well disciplined, motivated by the right way to proceed, which generally sounds like a good thing, right? But you can see if they're motivated by the right way to proceed, it'll be hard to get them to do something differently. They're very accurate and very well organized. However, they're going to hesitate to act without precedent, just like the S's. They're going to be bound by procedures and methods. It's always been done this way. We can't change it. They will not risk stating new ideas without qualifying what it is they're trying to tell you. They're not going to verbalize their feelings, right? Feelings don't really matter. They may do the work themselves and not delegate. So the S's, they don't want to burden you. That's the reason why they didn't want to delegate. The C's, they just don't trust you, right? If I have you do it, I'm going to have to overlook it, correct it, and fix it myself later on. I might as well just do it myself. It'll be faster that way. Have you heard someone say that before? You're dealing with an analytical. And they may yield position to avoid controversy. Not that they'll agree with you, they'll just kind of dismiss you. Yeah, you're right. And they'll move on. Who are some famous C's? Bill Gates, Albert Einstein. And if Dr. Spock was a real human being, he would be the epitome of a C profile, right? All logic, no emotions. Industries, engineers, accountants, scientists, mathematicians. You can see lots of numbers because people don't really matter, or at least their feelings don't. And if you're communicating with a C, prepare your case in advance. You better know what you're talking about if you're going to come in for an argument. Approach in a straightforward, direct way. Again, don't beat around the bush. Use a thoughtful approach. Build credibility by looking at both sides of the issue. Present specifics and do exactly what you said you were going to do. If you got time, drop an action plan. Schedules, dates, milestones. Take your time, but be persistent. And if you disagree, prove it with data, facts, or testimonials from respected people, right? It's got to be respected people, not just anybody. Provide them with information and the time they need to make a decision and allow them their space. Now, we've been describing D's, I's, S's, and C's as if everyone's one profile. But what happens is there's actually a healthy number of people that are two profiles. And if they're two profiles, we're going to see often it could be a D and an I and an S and a C, or a C and a D. And so if you look at this chart right here, right? The reds are the D's, the I's are the yellows, the greens are the S's, and the blues are the C's. And so if someone's a D and an I, or red and yellow, that just means they're extroverted. If they're an S and a C, or a blue and a green, they're introverted. If they're an I and an S, yellow and green, they're gonna be very people-oriented. And if they're a D and a C, or a red and a blue, they're gonna be task-oriented, right? So those are the most common combinations if someone has two profiles. Rarely, we're gonna see someone that's gonna be a yellow and a blue, someone that's social and analytical, if you can picture that. Very rare bird. And the oddest duck of all is someone that's a red and a green, or a D and an S, right? So how can someone be a driver and seek stability? Well, that's the oddest combination, and funny enough, that's who I am. I literally never fit in any box. Anywhere I applied and they checked my profile, there was no job for me. So let's pretend we take all the D's, all the I's, all the S's, all the C's, and we separated them and say, hey guys, we're gonna decorate Christmas trees. What are you gonna see? The way a D would decorate a Christmas tree is they're gonna go to the Christmas lot and they're gonna buy the biggest possible tree, even if it won't fit in the house, right? They'll cut off the top if they need to, but man, they're gonna have some extravagant, ornaments. They might have something from Tiffany's. In a perfect world, their tree would be as big as the tree at the Rockefeller Center, right? It's going to be huge and colorful, unnecessarily expensive. What about the eyes? Well, with eyes, when they're decorating a Christmas tree, it's going to be an event, right? We're going to have all these people around. We're going to have some eggnog. It's going to have some fairy lights, very sparkly decorations. It's going to be very colorful. What about an S? Well, Christmas tree with an S, it's going to be a little subdued, right? Not boring, just subdued. The most important ornaments are the ones that are from friends and family. And finally, with the analyticals, what are you going to find? Well, they're going to do a lot of research before they buy that tree. Probably going to be a fake Christmas tree so they can decorate the same every single year. And it's going to have very traditional colors, right? It's going to be gold, red, and green. And the lights are going to be precisely spaced apart. There will be no gaps anywhere in the tree. And this is how my trees look like in my house because my wife is an analytical. All right, so we've gone through this, right? The D's, I, S's, and C's. We've looked at the Christmas trees. Are you still confused? That's okay. If you're still overwhelmed, all you gotta do is mirror their behaviors. If you can mirror your customer, your prospect before you, you will naturally behave in a way that's consistent with how they behave. Mirroring is still the shortcut. It's the most effective shortcut for our entire sales process. If you can master that, you'll be very successful in sales. Congratulations, you made it to the very end. Thank you again for entrusting us to help you get better at sales. With all this information, you should now close more deals without even spending more money. So one thing I want to be sure, make sure you go through and rinse and repeat. This is not something you learn once and you master it. I went through this training myself when I first learned it, 5 hours a week for over a year. So listen, rinse, repeat. Maybe listen to this in your car. I don't know, but get better by learning and relearning and relearning. Practice on low stakes situations, on friends and family. And if you need more help, don't be afraid to reach out to me and my team to find out more about our live events. I wish you nothing but the best. Let's go close some deals.
That's the entire course. If you actually run this, you'll close more deals. Simple as that. And if you want the follow-up handled for you so you never lose another deal to a slow callback, book a call with our team at the link below. I'm Steve Tang. Let's close more sales.